It is the Titan Conqueror League Week 4, and we have another Group A matchup that's going to be featured on the broadcast this week. It is going to be a battle of the teams in the middle of the pack. We have the 4th seed Conduit Esports Vanguard versus the 5th place Odyssey Cronus. On the broadcast, my name is Ferris. I'm here to show the world. I'm with the wonderful Mr. Freedom Potatoes. We'll be bringing you this matchup for Conduit Esports. They want to break into that top portion of the standings, and for Cronus, it's about keeping your spot in the middle here and not falling too far down at the bottom.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting series that I think will have big implications for playoffs for both of these teams. Conduit Esports sitting at 2-1, Cronus at 1-2. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this one goes.
Me as well. Yeah. So I am a little familiar with Odyssey Cronus is a team I've coached in the past, and specifically Cruel. Now they've changed up their roster here. They got Gunman, they got Hayasaka, Miyagi, Ronnie World, but I'm excited to see how well this team does. And yeah, they want to be able to stay in those sort of contention for playoffs. They've been struggling a little bit. They had the nice 2-1 series victory, but the rest of them have been rough for them. So this is a huge potential bounce back series after they suffered the loss in the previous week. And yes, we are going to be getting into the draft very soon to see how these teams are, what these teams are bringing to the table for the first one. And into it we go. Again, Gunman, Hayasaka, Miyagi, Ronnie World, Cruel. Then we got on the other side for Conduit Esports, Krama, Glada, Chinese Spy, Genetics, and Yipsy as we head into the first round of bans.
So we see the Aurora being taken off the table early. Kind of surprised to see that banned out from the side of Odyssey because they've played the Aurora themselves a couple times. And they have the blue side, so if that's a pick they value a lot, they could grab it. And Amumu's banned out as well now. That's a pick I expected to be contested. Both of these teams have played it in the support role and in the jungle. So strong flex pick right now.
And it's going to be targeted bans towards both Cruel and Ronnie World. Ronnie World's played, you mentioned the Amumu, 3 games in the support role of Amumu so far. And the Renekton ban as well. Krama likes to play the Renektons, Jax, Mordekaiser, your typical bruisers. It seems to be the favorite bruisers of a lot of top laners. That's sort of the champion pool that this player likes to bring, so they don't want to deal with the Renekton. Let's see what the blue one pick is for the side of Odyssey Cronus as we are now finished with the bans and heading into the picks.
Okay, it's going to be the Kaisa grabbed up. That's strong pick. Was nerfed a little bit on the patch. The passive damage is down a little bit, so not going to be quite as much of like the Tank Shredder one-shot or champion that we know. But it's still a very solid pick. It's going to be answered with the Caitlyn, who has the range early on to bully out the Kaisa before she can really get online and dive into the backline to find those kills.
Yeah, and it was Caitlyn that was buffed a bit in 1420 with the attack speed. We see the Skarner pick up for Glada. That is going to be pretty powerful, as because Skarner was not touched on 1421, still withholding that power that he has in the meta. One of the most powerful junglers on the patch. So it's going to be now a Kayn response from Cruel. This is what Cruel likes to pull out. It's kind of a Cruel pocket pick here. The Kayn likely going to go into that red form to deal that percentage max health with the abilities. So I'm excited to see how Cruel pilots this one. It's not a pick that we see very often and could be something they're cooking up to bring them some success in game 1.
Yeah, it can take a while for that Kayn to come online and really start working, but the red form, very consistent and reliable. And we see Nami and Zyra being picked up now. Those could both be support, or they could take the Zyra into jungle and send Skarner top. But I think the Zyra has been played support for the side of Conduit Esports, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so, and we're going to see now, I mean, the Nami pick is very interesting to me. You don't see Nami very often, at least in competitive, with anything that isn't Lucian. And it's usually the Kaisa that's also paired with something that is engaged oriented. So it's an interesting combination that we're going to see pulled out from Miyagi and Ronnie World. And the response with the Zyra as well. These are not your traditional bot lanes, and it's going to be, normally Zyra likes to play into those engaged supports. So it's going to be an interesting one. I already said that it would be interesting, but I'm just trying to reiterate how unorthodox both of these bot lanes are. And it's pretty unknown how this is really going to interact here. So I expect to see a lot of actual chaos erupting as Lux is going to be locked in here on the B4 for Odyssey Cronus.
Yeah, we've got also the Aurelian Soul on the side of Conduit Esports. That's a pick that Chinese Spy has played a lot of. Was also nerfed a little bit this patch, but still a very strong late game scaler. Conduit Esports has so much zone control that it might be tough for Odyssey to find their way into a fight if the game goes late. And now we're seeing the Ornn and the Mordekaiser picked up for both top laners. Some tanky champs, but the Mordekaiser can really deal with a champion like Ornn because he gets the passive magic penetration from the E, I believe that is.
It's a really strong pick into picks like Ornn. The tank champions, Mordekaiser really likes those matchups, so it's a strong pick up there for Grandma in the top side to counteract Gunman's Ornn. And you talked about zone control, the seeds from Zyra, the Yordle snap traps from the Caitlyn, the zone control that you have with the well there from Aurelian Soul, which again, the damage was nerfed on this most recent patch, but we're talking in the context of zone control. There's a ton here. You can also utilize the Death Realm for Mordekaiser to pull out key targets from the side of Odyssey Cronus. And with this Kai'Sa here, there's really only one primary engage from Odyssey Cronus's composition, and that is the Ornn. So if the Call of the Forge God goes wide here, Potatoes, I'm feeling like their engage options are very limited.
I've got to agree, Ferris. The Kayn likes to play kind of in the walls, find flank angles a little more. Even if it is a red Kayn, it's a little harder for him to just walk up and find a knock up and start a fight. So I think the Ornn is going to be key. You know, if they can combo that with a Nami wave, that's going to be a lot of CC that will easily find kills for them. But yeah, if the Mord can snap up the Ornn with his ult before the Call of the Forge God is recasted and bounced the other way, that can totally shut down how Odyssey wants to play these fights.
If they can land the CC, it'll be nice with Killer Instinct. They might be able to one-shot a target. I'm looking at Genetics. I'm looking at Yipsy as the primary targets for Cronus. Now, an X factor in this game, too, within this draft. You have to talk about the Lux pick here. I feel like this pick is very underrated in levels of play like this because not everyone is going to be expecting the light binding to come out of the Fog of War into a one-shot, your typical Lux combo. And these could be the meaningful picks that Cronus need to find success in the game. It's something that always finds value. I feel like Lux is always going to be a threat. She always has the ability to knock someone out. And so I'm looking at Genetics, Chinese Spy. If one of these players get taken off the board, then an immediate 5v4, the sort of deficiencies of Odyssey Cronus's team composition might just be remedied with how powerful the Lux can actually be. Now we're going to head into game here and see which of these two teams is going to open up this best of 3 with a win in their category. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm Ferris. This is Freedom Potatoes. This is the Titan Conqueror League, and it is Odyssey Cronus against Conduit Esports Vanguard. Onto the Rift for game number 1.
Both teams playing pretty conservative with their early game. No real ways to start off and invade, so makes sense that they're playing it pretty safe. And let's see. Yeah, so yeah, as you were saying earlier, I think the Lux is a really reliable pick that can get a lot of value. Once you have like Lost Chapter or your first item, you can pretty much farm every wave like pretty reliably. And just make sure you're, staying on top of your income. Maybe shove and look to roam because of the Asol. While he does have good, and we see now a bit of poke coming down on a Chinese Spy, and the ward dropped
inside the jungle. Going to get a ward down onto Glada's red buff here. I'm interested to watch as the game progresses here and as we navigate through this early game. What is Cruel's pathing going to be? And how is he going to pilot the Kayn in terms of, are we full clearing? Obviously, you want to get to that level 6 so that you can get to that Darken form and the Darken Blade ability here. And red form as well is the thing. You want to get red form in this game. You're eating through a Mordekaiser and a Skarner's health. So it feels like that is the form that you would like to go for. And how do you get that early on? Are you going to look for invades? Are you going to try and utilize winning lanes here? But you don't really have winning lanes in this game. This is the thing, is like the Caitlyn into the low range and the Mordekaiser into the Ornn, it might be hard for Cruel to actually get that done.
That's a great point you bring up with the winning and losing lanes. I feel like everything is, yeah, maybe slightly losing early game from the side of Odyssey. Deluxe, I think, does have a bit of an advantage, but Aurelion Sol can stand back and play pretty safe into that. So unless you've got a binding landing, it will be tough for Kane to find the in. And the A-Sol is a ranged champion, so not the best if your goal is to hit the red form instead.
That is true. So I see the clears here from both junglers are going towards the same sides of the map. And the grubs would be very nice to have here, at least coming from the side of Conduit Esports. Vanguard, because of the fact that they have the Caitlyn who's going to be trying to get that gold lead through the tower plates, is heavy trading from both Hayasaka and Chinese Spy, but Hayasaka is getting the better of him right now, very close to getting a solo kill. And we also have seen Cruel now going for this invade, taking away the Krug, so without, and actually has some pretty good lane priority right now with the fact that Hayasaka has just forced Chinese Spy away and Gunman moving down now. We're setting up for an excellent opportunity to go for an invade, but Glada just drives right through the wall to escape, but they steal away the Krugs and the red buff potatoes.
Good escape by Glada, but Cruel Sun God is coming out massively ahead on that, getting 2 camps over their counterpart. And yeah, and a little bit of damage on the Skarner. You know, a lot of times on Kayn, you do really want to scrap with the other jungler early to kind of get your form as early as possible.
Oh my goodness.
Glada does find the smite, so a little bit of revenge for the Skarner here. They are going to fight.
Cruel's mad about that. You know, that's prime like jungle ego right there, is the smites over the scuttle crabs. I don't know if you play jungle potatoes. I don't play jungle, but I know that this is something that they absolutely hate. When the other jungler walks up, takes your scuttle crab, you just get filled with rage. And you can see there Cruel wanted to chase him down and just run him down to oblivion and get that kill, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's actually going to be a double crab for Glada after that unfortunate play where 2 of his camps were stolen. So I think in the end, Cruel will still have a 1 camp advantage, but that's actually very nice for this Skarner to not fall too far behind in pace over the Kayn.
Still for Cruel Sun God, but I was surprised to see Glada go for that crab. I think a lot of players would have just given up and gone straight to the bot side to look for the other one, but comes in when it's at just like 10 HP and smites it away.
Searing Charge connects, and now Gunman in some trouble as Cruel is here after the full clear. The pullback is only going to bring Cruel closer to the Mordekaiser here. The flash still available for Krama. Gunman getting quite low, respecting the fact that this could actually go both ways, and Cruel gets so very low in this exchange, but the first blood to the Kayn, and all those red stacks are coming through now.
Lots of damage by Krama done in the 1v2, but just over time, the damage whittling down from the Kayn with that red buff and blue buff, sticking on you with the persistent slows and dashes is too much to handle. And yeah, all those red orbs going exactly the way Cruel Sun God would want to play this early game out.
And you want a messy game if you're Kayn. You don't want too much coordination to come through in these fights because of the fact that you're walking into a Zyra. Caitlyn with the 90 caliber net can buy so much space here. So if you're ahead, you can kind of dictate the way that these plays are going to go. You can jump into the enemy jungle because you're so strong and look for these scrappy plays when there's no coordination that's going to be able to be grabbed here by Conduit Esports. So that extra kill, that's good to start the snowball here that this Kayn definitely wants. But the dragon secured on the other side of the map, so there's still some wins here for Conduit Esports.
By Conduit to, yeah, notice that Kayn's topside, respond by sending the Skarner down bot and using that strong pushing bot lane with the Caitlyn Zyra to get an early dragon. And something else I just wanted to comment on, like, because of that early invade, is I really wanted to, call out Odyssey for having a good presence of mind to get priority and roam into the top side early. Ooh.
Just gonna see that into the death realm goes Gunman. It's a level 6 advantage for Krama, so nice heads up play there to all in on that timer. It gets the flash off of Gunman.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of a wave state advantage for Krama maybe to get level 6 first, because he gave up that first blood, but he's still ahead in XP and uses that surprise timer to, blow his enemy laner's flash.
And Grub's denied as Glada is going to run into Cruel here. Cruel's going to say, wait a second, this is not allowed. I'm going to take away all of your camps. I can hear Cruel saying this, is saying to his teammates, this is not allowed. He's able to actually get a whole bunch of stacks off of that trade there in the exchange for the Raptors, but the Caitlyn's denied of those first 3 grubs. And the Acel too, who'd want to play side lane as well, might benefit from those cards. But let's remember here, Gunman, no flash, and is going to use the Call of the Forge God, has the ultimate available. Kramis still has the shield here to work with, has the bar completely full, whittling down, or maybe doesn't, used it earlier in the play. Gunman finds a solo kill on the Ornn.
Excellent swing back from Gunman in the counter matchup, still finding a solo kill, taking advantage of Krama using the ult earlier, hitting his own level 6, and yeah, all in a great way.
It's a perfect timing. You know that there is no ultimate here from Krama, can't steal away your stats, can't utilize part of his kit, which is so vital to taking you out, as Genetics has been locked up by the bubble. Nice job from Ronnie World. Cruel is here to get the assist as well. Kill to your Kaisa. Odyssey, Cronus, they're raking in the cash. They are loving this early game right now. It's about as good as they could have possibly hoped for right now.
Yeah, it's going fantastic for Odyssey, Cronus in this early game. They've just been finding advantages in every lane, even though we said early on that, you know, I thought they didn't really have winning lanes, but they're just outplaying their opponents right now.
They certainly are. So it's a kill to the Kaisa. And this is the time of the lane where Caitlyn really wants to get that lead over their opponent. It is a plate to Genetics and Yipsy down here, but that's a whole kill to the Kaisa. So that gold is going to be in their favor right now. When we go further into the game, Kaisa does, well, not necessarily outscale the Caitlyn, more of a DPS threat, more of your traditional hyper carry, where Caitlyn relies on the setup, on the early leads to snowball, but still can pack a punch later on. I definitely favor this game state for Odyssey Cronus right now. Let's see if going forward, if they can keep their pedal to the metal and utilize this advantage that they have right now to actually balloon this even more, unlock the potential of their skirmishing here with this game.
I think Odyssey Cronus has the tools they need to, yeah, push the pace of this game forward and find the win. As we see a fighting
charge, Krama's been stunned up, but now in the Death Realm, he's put Gunman inside. This Ornn should be tanky enough, though, to survive for the time being and wait for Cruel to rejoin the play. But now, enough time was bought for Glada to get here, so the Mordekaiser able to evade from the gank. We're going to see 1 versus 1 here. Hayasaka and Chinese Spy. The Sky's Descent comes down, but here comes the ultimate. There's the combo, the ace in the hole as well, to try and drop down Hayasaka, who's already got the first kill, still has flash to use, but decides not to go for it. Genetics on the roam picks up the kill, is gonna drop this whole wave in plates.
Ooh, even with the ace in the hole, Hayasaka still finds the 1v1 against the ace hole, who, yeah, hasn't had that time to scale up yet. And now there's a huge loss in the bot lane. That's like 2 waves and 2 plates over to the side of the Kaisa.
Oh, the Forge God, Genetics uses flash a little early, so that choo-choo train's gonna knock you right up just as easy. The trap is placed behind him, but it's not going to work. Cruel also dodges away from the impale, but here is Krama to support his AD carry, and they bought them enough peel. Now the tidal wave will roll through, but the first death of the fight will be from Cruel. It's Krama to pick up the kill credit. Now Gunman in the middle of no man's land, and Yipsy moved up from the bot lane. Cronus, oh my gosh, the failed flash from Ronnie, the salt in the wound right before the grubs. It all collapses in front of their face.
Ooh, that's exactly what you don't want to see from the side of Odyssey Cronus, as Conduit Esports actually find themselves in a gold lead now after what was looking to be a bit of a disastrous early game. But I think Odyssey just maybe overstays on the map. It looks like they hadn't really gotten those buys in. And oh, wow. It's another solo kill. Just like you were talking about earlier, a lot of people don't expect those bindings to find their mark and do so much damage, especially early on.
I mean, Genetics there just gives a freebie over to Hayasaka. Those are the deaths you got to avoid. And now the Drake is started from the side of Odyssey Cronus, so they deny any dragon stacking hopes from Conduit Esports. And I'm looking at the build from the Caitlyn, and you can give your thoughts on this, Potatoes. The Hubris, I personally don't like it. I think you're missing out on a lot here by not building crit, and you're making your damage very sort of reliant on the fact that you hit your abilities and get those CC chains.
That's pretty much the solo AD. I mean, there is some merit to the fact that Odyssey probably will be stacking a lot of magic resist, and so that lethality will hurt. But they still have an Ornn and a Kayn who can get a lot of health, and I think it will take a while for the Caitlyn to cut through those priority targets. So you're really relying on like the Acel and the Mordekaiser to deal with the tankier members, and hoping that you can, you know, find Qs and traps and just auto attack onto the squishier members of Odyssey with a build like this.
It'll find value potentially when more lethality is built up. You use Ace in the Hole to chunk someone like Hayasaka, who won't have any healing, to 50% of their health bar. But for Ronnie World, who has lots of healing, is Ronnie, you've just stepped into the trap, my friend. No way. Are we serious right now? We walked right into the trap. We burned the teleport for this too. Cronus, that's gotta hurt. I mean, you know what? Sometimes you just walk into a Euro Snap trap and it's that aura trap. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it can catch you off guard sometimes. And right as we're kind of, debating the merits of the build, we see there, it does a lot of damage. If someone steps into a trap, that was like one auto and one Q that took Nami down.
Miyagi now, and that's the good impale. There's the Strangle Thorns too. The flash won't get you anywhere really, but the heals come through from Ronnie World out of the Death Chamber just in time, plus the barrier. So Miyagi actually walks this one out. Does have to use both summoners though, and probably can't join the rest of this fight. But here is Yipsy tanking the tower. The minions have fallen, and Cruel will grab that kill credit as Miyagi is playing so aggressive. Glada flashes forward, trying to finish off the kill here at the very least before he drops eventually to, I have to believe, Cruel, as he's now joining the play. The bubble nicely hits. Hayasaka from the mid lane is going to drop a little bit of more damage, and Cruel gets the shutdown here onto the Scorpion. 3 kills now for this red game.
Pure chaos in the early game, and it's really tough to say who's coming out on top here. On the one hand, we had Odyssey starting off so strong, Conduit Esports finding their way back in, but then maybe a bit of a counter throw both ways. Now, one thing that I think is going well for Conduit Esports is the Aurelion Sol has had a lot of time to farm up. Second highest CS in the game, and yeah, mostly untouched other than the early death to the Lux. So that's kind of the late game win condition for Conduit Esports, and if they can continue to farm up, I think that's going to be a big threat to Odyssey here.
It absolutely is. And I'm thinking about those late game implications. I feel like we're going to be seeing now that this is a lethality Caitlyn. So many kills from afar. With the fact there's a Lux in the game too, light bindings from Fog of War will kill someone immediately. The Sky's Descend will be massive, and the Ace in the Holes are going to be doing 50% of people's health later on. But let's pay attention to what's happening in the top side. Krama's going to put Gunman into the Death Realm. He wants this 1 versus 1. Krama, what? Your ankles have been snapped in half, my friend. That was a very late follow-up flash, but Cruel is locked up in the middle of a Sky's Descent, goes inside of the ultimate to escape all of this, and is carrying this fight completely thanks to the help of his shield buddies in the Lux and the Nami. They should be able to get their prize in the Rift Herald.
2 more kills over the side of Odyssey, Cronus, and the Rift Herald, but first turret does go down on the bot side, and this Caitlyn and Zyra can push really fast to get probably a decent chunk on the next one. Now, we do have the Ornn walking down to respond. Good for Odyssey Cronus that the Ornn survived, because if the Mordekaiser had found the kill during the ult, that would be a lot more free time that Conduit Esports bot lane gets to potentially take down that turret.
So it's tier 1 in response from CEV, but here is the Rift Herald immediately after clearing this away as Genetics is on the flank, but I feel like you would like these odds here in the 2 versus 1. They're gonna respect it. I don't know, Genetics, that was a very ballsy play, but my guy knew his strengths and actually scared off both Ronnie and Hayasaka. I feel like one light binding to connect and followed up with a bubble. It might have been doomed for the Caitlyn. But they don't lose anything else other than the tier 1 here, Potatoes, so it is going to be a net loss for them after that play, but it could have been a little worse for them if it ended up dropping.
We might see another turret drop to Gunman here, but this might be an overstay because Glada and Chinese Spy are both showing up.
Drive is going to connect, but Bellow's Breath used to buffer that crowd control. Very nice from Gunman, and that's going to be enough to escape from the play. So a good absorption of pressure gives Miyagi and Ronnie World time to get the mid priority and run up that way. But here's Yipsy, and the brush finds the root here. The Strangle Thorns used onto Ronnie World. The flash won't get him out of those thorns because they still knock him up. Anyways, the Ace in the Hole as well on top of it. There's that lethality from Genetics. They get themselves a nice pick before the Mountain Drake.
6 kill participations now onto the Caitlyn, who wants to get involved in as many kills as they can with that hubris, and with the Collector picked up now, can finish off targets from pretty high amounts of HP. So becoming quite a threat here. Maybe that's playing into why they were looking so scared earlier.
Cruel wants inside of the pit. They're down to 3k HP. They're going to give up this dragon. And you know what? I might have to write an apology letter to Genetics. I was saying I didn't like the lethality, but more and more as this game progresses, I'm feeling like it's feeling pretty good. Especially when, you know, you get the picks onto this Nami. She's not very tanky at all. Those ace in the holes are going to be dealing 50% of her health. One headshot's going to take her out too. The only two units that might give you problems is Kayn and Ornn because of your lack of DPS.
That's exactly how I think that'll play out as the game goes on. You know, if there's team fights happening where Odyssey can really play front to back, then I think the lack of DPS might hurt Genetics' total output in those fights. But on the other side, if you've got a kind of chaotic game like we're seeing right now, I think the lethality Caitlyn works great because you can join into a fight from afar with the ace in the hole. And actually, we're seeing a fight on top side now.
Continuing to try and exploit Krama here. Gunman, again, is the constant target, and it's always Krama that's going to win this 1v1, but Gunman's able to live for long enough, which is the reason why this play actually is going to work for Odyssey Cronus. Now, Glada is on the way. I don't think he's going to get back here in time to help his Mordekaiser, because Cruel's actually going to commit the flash, now the ultimate, but that's going to be eaten up by the shield. Nice double knock up here, though. This Kayn is unleashed. No one can really stop him in this 2 versus 2. There's just not enough damage from the Skarner or the Mordekaiser. We also saw off camera, it's a kill for Miyagi onto Chinese Spy. Odyssey Cronus all across the map are taking over in this mid game.
Odyssey Cronus with a huge surge as they find those 3 kills. And yeah, this red Kayn is so good at taking down targets that are stacking HP. So right now you've got the Skarner, the Mordekaiser, and the Aurelion Soul, all who have a lot of health built up, but not much in the way of resists. And honestly, not a lot of easy like crowd control to hit the Kayn, lock him down, and kill him before he can find his way through a wall or use the ult to get inside of someone.
And you know what's the thing that's also great is the fact that Cruel has been playing, well, he's been playing all around the map. But these plays in the top side are so beneficial as we see 700 gold go his way. Gonna be even more happy about that. This Kayn is completely as fed as you would ever want him to be. But in the top side, we can look at the gold now. Thank you to Wookie for transitioning over to that. 3,000 gold for Cruel. This is insane. When you're making plays topside, you're going to be hitting both Krama and Glada most likely. And those are the 2 targets you want to hit. These are 2 champions, and you were talking about it too, Potatoes. Kayn is, or at least Red Kayn, designed to knock down these champions. So they know their strengths here, does Odyssey Cronus, and more specifically Cruel.
I've got to give also, yeah, big props to Cruel Sun God for playing around what should be a losing matchup in the top side and turning it into a source of orbs for the Kayn, as well as just building a gold lead for the Ornn so that he can withstand the Mordekaiser in the 1v1 and buy time for the others to show up and help out.
You see an early Thornmill from Gunman. The respect that's being paid to Genetics on the Caitlyn. You mentioned earlier, aside from maybe Skarner, it is a full magic damage team, except for the Caitlyn. And so we would see a lot of magic resist stacking, which, to be fair, we do. Merc treads on both, pretty much all the top side. I assume that Gunman's going to itemize into the Merc treads as well. But that Thornmail, it's going to really hurt for Genetics. You're building full lethality. Your arch nemesis is someone who's going to build Thornmail. And you talked about it earlier, the front-to-back team fights. This is going to very much benefit Odyssey Cronus when it's Genetics who's forced to hit that Ornn, who now has that very valuable item in his inventory.
Gunman's now got, yeah, 2 items completed, and so can kind of afford to build, you know, not just for the 1v1 with the Mordekaiser, but think a little more ahead to the future, to the team fights. And there is value in the anti-heal when you're fighting a Mord 1v1. As Odyssey looks onto the Baron briefly, but they see their opponents showing up and decide to call it off. Probably a good call, but his mid turret might drop anyway with the lethality Caitlyn doing so much damage.
Genetics has to be careful, but so does Miyagi. That's so much damage that's come through. And now the ace in the hole. It's going to take down Ronnie. Hayasaka flash, but flash too far forward. A comedy of errors for Odyssey Cronus. Can Cruel help them out here to make this play a little bit better for themselves? Should get the kill here onto Genetics. Now going to jump onto Yipsy as Glada as well has to deal with the back line of Cronus too and needs to ride on out of this play. But Miyagi with 1 HP is just going to jump right in, use the flash, use the barrier. Flashy plays from the Cronus 80 carry. Skies Descend from Chinese Spy to try and get something out of this play, but you're going to get knocked up by Cruel. You're going to get lasered down by the Lux of Hayasaka, and the tower in the mid lane is going to be falling as well.
Kane and Orange just take Conduit Esports to the bouncy house castle and just, yeah, knock them down. Those knockups, you know, you can't build Merc Treads into it. It's pretty tough if the first one lands to avoid any follow-up CC. And yeah, the follow-up from Lux and Kaisa is so much damage. Really interesting play by Miyagi, going into the backline with the Killer Instinct, burning both the barrier and the flash to get this kill onto Glada. I don't know if I'd call it worth, but I have to respect the, you know, the intensity of play there to find that kill. And now,
at least jungler off the map, so they had the ability to grab that Mountain Drake. And I want to go to an earlier point that I talked about, just to really highlight why that went so right for Cronus. The skirmishy, very uncoordinated fights. That's what a Kane loves. That's what a Kaisa actually thrives in sometimes nicely as well, because you have Killer Instinct to reposition. Asoul wants to sit behind the back line. Caitlyn needs set up with her traps. And then things need to be played slowly here for the Skarner to find the right amount of CC. It wasn't happening in that last play, but let's try and see this one. Yipsy and Genetics, this is the bot lane here trying to frontline right now. They're very much out of position, and they're both going to drop, but Ronnie World has no peel either. Both of the bot lanes kind of being sacrificed in this one. It's only the top sides from both teams that remain. Krama has put Hayasaka inside of the Death Realm and utilizing the nice rock here to get away from that Mordekaiser. Let's look to the right side of our screen, though. Cruel is doing Kane things once again. Health bar completely full, money in his pocket, a Baron in his sights, but Glada is still alive for a potential steal if they try it.
Cruel Sun God chasing down Chinese Spy so effectively. The Asoul, you know, has the Astral Flight, I think is the name, but can't get away. If a knockup comes through to cancel that, that's a long cooldown, and with no flash, it's just so tough to get away from the mobility that the Kane offers. And yeah, like you were just saying, you really need the setup for those fights. You really want to be front to backing, but instead, Genetics and Yipsy find themselves in the enemy jungle with no one around to help them. So if they don't get an instant pop onto someone, that is going to be a disaster for them, as it was there.
They might have been sitting inside of the brush. They want someone unsuspectingly to walk up so that they can combo a root into a quick kill and maybe transition that into the Baron. But they got snuffed out, and it ended up being their own detriment here. So the game plan for the side of Conduit Esports, it's been cracked from Odyssey Cronus. They've been constantly getting advantages in every single setup that CEV has tried. And I don't know about you, Potatoes, but I don't foresee a way in the future, especially with their Asoul being so far behind, is not accelerated in any way. How do they kill Cruel? How do they actually get this Kane to drop? They're trying to focus the backline, but at the same time, he's just running amok in their own backline, taking out everyone. So if they all in for him, they still have Miyagi and this Lux to worry about. This game state right now, I very much favor Cronus.
I've got to agree. Cruel is playing with so much confidence, knows that really nothing can touch him. Because if anything happens, can E through the wall, can ult into someone, and just keep healing up with those Qs and Ws. So I'm struggling to see a way right now for Conduit Esports to find their footing back in this game. There was so much chaos in the early game, and they did a good job coming back. Ooh,
let's look at the Baron play. Tidal Wave runs through two people. Look at that combination. Sky's Descent will drop down. I think Ronnie World is finished in this fight, but Cronus might just take the rest of it. Cruel is full HP. Just pay attention to the Kane. That's all we got to worry about. Kills go the way of the side of CEV. They actually have picked up every single member except for the Kane. Let's see if Cruel can pull this one off. Does he have the ultimate available? He does. He goes into it now. Traps are being placed to try and predict where he exits, but it will not be enough. Genetics, you don't have the DPS to deal with him. Flash away from the knockup. I feel like it's only delaying the inevitable. Getting close, actually, though, with the barrier. I shouldn't have said anything. The caster curse is real. Genetics with the outplay, and the fight win for CEV.
So well played from the side of Genetics. I thought that Flash was an overinvestment, but together with the barrier, it buys enough time to get the last bits of damage into Cruel. And in a kind of ironic sense, you kind of like the 1v1 as a range champ there, because Cruel doesn't have all these targets to hit with the Q and sustain off of your tankier members. It's just, if you can keep your distance, that Kane becomes a little squishier than they look in these other fights.
It was the Sterix that was procced earlier in the fight, and the Spirit Visage no armor built yet. I'm not sure if the medallion came through before or after the fight actually ended, looking to build into what I believe is the death stance on that fourth item. So with a little bit more armor, then Cruel is going to be able to actually sustain that damage from the Caitlyn. But it's really good kiting here, and it actually favors Caitlyn nicely. 90 caliber net. Kayn has to run at you in a straight line. That's exactly what Caitlyn wants. So well done here to Genetics. Now has the rapid fire cannon completed. So longer range on these headshots, very much getting close to the sort of climax or the apex tier of his power in this game.
4 items now for Genetics, who is the real damage threat on the side of Conduit Esports right now. And there's a bit of scrapping happening now in the river.
We're going to see some scrapping here. Tidal Wave runs through the team. Call the Forge God is coming through as well, but CC'd up is going to be Gunman. Gets it off in time, 1 for 1, but onto Genetics they go. Cruel is here, and Cruel will pop him like a balloon. Standing still is Chinese Spy, trying to bring him down, but nowhere near enough damage to eat through the Spirit Visage Kayn. Hayasaka is going to drop here to Krama inside of the Death Realm, but again, it's the dynamic duo. It's Gunman, it's Cruel. The Gravity Well will pull him in. The Sterix is now procced. I don't think Krama has enough gas in the tank to take out both of these two, although he's putting up a valiant fight here. Shield going to block a little bit of the damage. Healing is coming through, but the Bellows Breath plus the bot right there from Gunman will put him down, and this will be soul point acquired now for ODC.
So close from Krama. I think if he gets another one of those W's off, there's a chance he wins that even in the 1v2. And I think he's been doing a great job absorbing the pressure in these fights from the front line of Odyssey. But nevertheless, Cruel Sun God using the flash advantage, since its Genetics used it in the last fight, to find a way in and take out that primary carry for the side of Conduit Esports and win the team fight, and now put them onto the soul point.
It was a very nice snap engage onto Genetics, getting him out of the fight early. I'm worried, though, about the fact, or at least the lack of peel, backline peel it is, for Ronnie World and Hayasaka. Hayasaka's been put in the Death Realm in these last 2 fights. Miyagi has the luxury of jumping into the backline with Killer Instinct, but Cruel and Gunman are running amok in the backside. They're doing a fantastic job, but it's hard to keep your support alive, to keep everyone alive. So if there ever comes a time where Genetics, like we saw in the play where he outplayed Cruel near the Baron, if Genetics survives the fight, then your backline as Odyssey Cronus is falling to Krama, who's been doing a great job of getting access there. And that could be the detriment to ODC in these fights too. So this game's still very close. We talked about how powerful the Kayn was and how unstoppable it was, but I foresee still playable options here for the side of CEV. As we'll look at this 1 versus 1. Gunman is level 16, but the level 16 just hit here for Krama too. Waiting on that last little bit of cooldown for the ultimate. Needs to get it soon here because Gunman's putting up a fight, but now with the ultimate used, Death Realm is gone, and the stats are there for Krama. Gets the solo kill, huge on the side of the bot lane for the CEV, but now it's going to be Genetics who's being engaged on, but Miyagi pops very quickly here. 3 versus 3 now in the fight. 3 versus 2 actually, because Chinese Spy is very far away. Glada has no backline to help him out. It's just going to be the Zyra. Going to try and flash over the wall. Is going to get it. Skies Ascend finds the stun here onto Cruel to deny the chase potential. And ODC, they hold their ground in the mid lane.
Positioning is the name of the game for its Genetics, and it hasn't gone quite so well for them in these last 2 fights. Flash just coming up after the death, so unfortunate there. But yeah, I don't think trading the Kaisa for the Caitlyn is really what you want on the side of Conduit Esports, even though Miyagi goes a little too deep and gets popped real quick. It's got to be, I think a little more defensive and slow from them, finding and marking the Kayn so that he has a tough time finding his way onto the Caitlyn.
I really dislike, I have already talked about things I dislike in the build, but I don't like the executioners there from Miyagi here. It's delaying the Nashor's Tooth Spike for this 80 carry. It's a huge spike for Kaisa. You want all 3 of your evolves. It really ups your potential to be able to one-shot a target, which he tried to do onto Genetics there, but ended up getting one-shot himself, because look at those items from the Caitlyn. Absolutely crazy. And that is going to be it has been a huge advantage all game long in the bot side, or at least from mid game 2 towards this late game. And this Kaisa just really hasn't gotten to her strengths yet, so maybe something still to look forward to for Odyssey Cronus.
I think that Executioner is, a little confusing to me, because there's not a lot of healing on the side of Conduit Esports. I mean, the Mordekaiser has the Rift Maker and the W as they look for a pick on a Cruel, but Cruel is so tanky, I don't think they'll find much value here. Decent chunk though, but red buff and it'll light up soon. But yeah, there's not a lot of healing on the side of Conduit Esports, and you know, I think usually if Krama's healing a lot, it's probably because he's hitting the Ornn or something who already has that Thorn Mail to reduce the healing. So, like you said, the delay on the Nashor's Spike is, I think, a bit of an issue for the build on the side of Miyagi.
Fortunately, they have enough time in this game to actually get there. It's not going to be proved to be their detriment. But Ronnie, good night, bro. Good night. It's time to go to sleep. There's your pillow. Genetics just bought you a pillow. He just tucked you into bed. There you go. That's a 4 versus 5 now for Odyssey around this Baron. Gunman might just be the target underneath this tower. You do have to be careful, though, because that would be a very tough target. The actual objective might just be the tier 1 in this top side. I don't think there's much ODC can do. I'm not sure if the support pick is enough for them to snap onto the Baron here, but yeah, lethality Caitlyn, that's the real deal right there in those situations.
You can see what Genetics and Yipsy were going for in the earlier play where they got caught. You know, that's like just a 2-shot.
We're going to see the fight now. Impale is going to miss, but look at the lockdown here onto Cruel. Gets the Sterix proc. The Stranglethorns will knock him up, and they get the jungler here, acing the whole blocks, but Genetics somehow gets that kill anyways. But look at the light binding. It's massive. Genetics drops to 10% HP. The Call of the Forge God should be able to finish it off, and Miyagi joins with the Killer Instinct to take that one down. Flashes away from the pull from Krama, but into the Death Realm he goes. Krama utilizes the flash as well to try and close the gap. Can Miyagi get the burst down here to get the outplay inside of the Death Realm? He cannot, but the kills should come through for ODC. Triple kill for the Ornn in the play. Tidal Wave goes wide. Flying away is Chinese Spy. Oh my goodness. Potatoes. Look what's available for them on the other side of the map.
That is almost certainly going to be the soul over to the side of Odyssey. And what a team fight from both sides. Even with the earlier support pick, Odyssey's still able to get in. Love the ult from Miyagi into the backline to find that kill with the Killer Instinct. And great job by Gunman, frontlining, doing so much damage as well. It's, yeah, you know, we are seeing the Aurelian Souls start to come online, able to do a lot of damage off of the lockdown. And actually, Odyssey's going to have to back off of this. Their jungler's late. They don't want to give Glada the free smite. So we'll see if Conduit Esports try to commit to this with the 2 members they have here and get it down before Cruel shows up. But he's in the wall.
But Cruel is here. That's going to be a smite fight. This would be so big for Odyssey if they end up getting this, and they do not. It's the smite from Glada, which is good. But let's watch the fight immediately afterwards here. This could have big implications. Glada is on the run. Traps are being nicely placed by Genetics. And it's a great heist here. A mistake, actually, from Odyssey Cronus to start that without the necessary damage to be able to bring it down before Glada respawned and got back into that play. Of course, it was a flip, but, you know, they might have wanted better setup there before that play actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've got to show some respect to your opponent's respawn timers, but I think they maybe could have recognized there were only 2 players on the side of Conduit that could be there right then and there. And if they play to, you know, maybe instead of, you know, move from the Dragon to zone those players off of getting in the first place, I think they can buy time for Cruel to show up and lock down the Dragon for themselves. But instead, I think they give a little bit too much respect, and that ends up biting them. Yeah, now it's soul point for both teams, and they're grouping around a potential Baron fight next.
This game has developed into something closer than I could have ever imagined. Let's see this fight now. Genetics is knocked up, doesn't have flash from the previous play, has nobody around him to save him. So this might just be the opening pick here for Cronus that could lock themselves into at least a Baron or the winning portion of the game. It's going to be Cruel again in the backside. Impale goes wide. Krama inside the Death Realm is losing to whoever he has locked inside of there. It is Cruel, and he is going to lose that one 2-0. ODC, they should be able to get the first Baron of the game, I think, Potatoes here at 36 minutes.
Yeah, there have been a lot of looks at this Baron. I think Odyssey might have even tried to do it when it first spawned around 20 minutes. But now, yeah, 6-10 minutes later, it's finally being taken down for the first time. As there's just been so much chaos in this game. You know, random picks happening across the map. These big team fights that are so unpredictable who's going to come out on top, and often leave each team, you know, limping away with just 1 or 2 players alive.
It's been the full transition into a crit build from Genetics now. Infinity Edge as the last purchase here. So there is 100% crit chance on this Caitlyn now. And I said I was talking about the fact that long range picks and snap engages might be the name of the game. You saw it in that fight. Genetics is gone immediately. Earlier, it was Ronnie World that was taken out so quickly. There is so much damage potential on both of these teams. There is a bit of a, and they have two heavy front lines in their top and jungle, but Cruel right now has been the X factor of this game. I talked about the Lux, but this guy's put on a clinic here with the Red Cane in this game number one, and has been so pivotal for Odyssey to be finally in this position now where they might be able to finally crack the base. Call of the Forge God's going to come through onto Yipsy. No flash to get out of this. Way too overextended. That's an easy pick for ODC. What can they get on the follow-up play?
Yeah, another key overextension from the bot lane of Conduit Esports.
They're just going to keep going. They don't stop. I thought maybe they were going to have a slow, drawn-out siege, but they are just going, gunning for the end of the game. They kill the Mordekaiser. They pop the inhibitor. Certainly with the Baron-empowered minions, you go for this if you're Cronus. You got to be able to utilize your confidence here. You have another wave coming up. It's 5 versus 3. I think they can do this. But Cruel is getting kind of low. Hysterics has now popped. It's very tense. It looks like their call is to get out of this one as Ronnie stepped on a trap. Oh my gosh, look at that damage. Ace in the hole comes through too. Things are so tense. Gravity Well comes down. They want the disengage. They 100% want it.
The wave clear from the Aurelion Soul and the Caitlyn is pretty strong, so unless you're 100% confident that you can end, you don't want to find yourself, getting engaged on by Glada with the Impale and losing a couple members and now being on the back foot for the next objective, because that dragon is in 1 minute, and if you give over any freebies, Conduit Esports is going to have a setup, and it is tough to get in when they have that setup. You've seen in a lot of these fights, when they have the setup, deep vision, they can set up plays with the Caitlyn and the Zyra, but Caitlyn might be overextended here now.
Genetics 90 caliber net over the wall. Had flash too. Call the Forge God. That Caitlyn's out of range here. Cruel really wants to chase Genetics down, but they found themselves a secondary target. That is Glada, who's going to drop. That's a big frontline unit here. Gets a nice impale just before he falls, and that Sky's Descend gets some value, but there's no follow-up onto it. Let's look at 30 seconds time. The Mountain Soul will be available for Odyssey Cronus. They don't want to go for the end right now. They don't want to try and crack any more parts of the base. As I say that, they turn right around, but they definitely have that soul in their sights. And yeah, 10 seconds, they're going to turn right around and go for that.
Baron buff just wearing off now, so it's tricky for them to siege down that turret with the Aurelion Soul and Caitlyn up. But the soul should be theirs. There's no Skarner to come in and smite, and no real other threats on the side of Conduit that can make a steal happen. So that should be Mountain Soul over to Odyssey. And once that's secured, this Caitlyn's job is going to get a lot harder, chunking through the shield and the extra resist that this Mountain Soul gives.
In the next 5 minutes, or 6 minutes rather, I think it's very important that Cronus tries to end the game here because they are in the lead. The gold lead is 7,000, 6,000, but at this stage of the game, that doesn't really matter as much because everyone's full build, so who cares? If this comes down to Elder, you're flipping that objective basically on a fight success, and we've seen successful fights from Conduit Esports, and they could win that fight, they could get Elder, and that could be their way back into the game. So if I am ODC, I have that in the back of my mind here, thinking, okay, we're on a timer here where we probably should be ending the game with the advantage that we have now with the Mountain Soul.
That's a great point, because as this inhibitor's been dead, Chinese Spy is collecting so much Stardust and so much gold on these side lanes, which is turning the Cecil, who has had a pretty rough game, into almost full build. And if he has the Sky's Descend, a massive teamfight tool that could swing an Elder fight in their favor.
Caitlyn completed Zephyr. Now, this is as full build as you get. Yeah, gold lead be damned. When everyone's getting here to this point, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Nice healing, though, from Ronnie World. The ace in the hole value isn't as much at this stage of the game. These teams are playing so slow, Potatoes. They are very worried about making a game-losing mistake, and they're not really willing to pull the trigger here. I feel like this is probably, at this point, in the way that they're playing, going to go to a game-ending Elder Drake fight.
It very well could. Conduit Esports, I don't know if they can contest this Baron. It might be tough for them to. If they give it over, or if they make a key misstep beforehand, then the game could end right away. As we see Yipsy get bubbled, but is able to walk out and survive for now. But I do think if Odyssey gets this Baron, there's a chance they can just walk up and end. That Mountain Soul is giving them so much bonus health and bonus resists that if they can, sync up their waves and walk in, even with these wave clear tools, it'll be tough for Conduit to hold on. They might get triple inhibbed into an Elder and then loss or something like that.
So the turn back towards the Baron should come through very soon for ODC. If it's not at the Baron, it's going to be a random bubble. It's going to be a root from Yipsy. A big Skies Descend, Impale, another ability you have to look at. Something like this, a Light Binding connecting Skies Descend onto Miyagi, who might be falling here. The Mountain Soul did wonders in that situation where Miyagi's tanking up that whole Aurelion Soul combo. Onto the Baron we go, where we might see the final fight of the game.
And a potentially underrated part of Odyssey's team comp is in the late game, these Lux shields are pretty big, and so are the heals from Nami, so it's tough to have that Caitlyn damage stick. And the Baron's dropped to half health now, seeing if we can find a way in.
And in goes Krama. He's found a way in. He's found himself onto Ronnie World. It is the support, the tidal wave used, the redemption inside of the Death Realm too, but Cruel flashes onto Genetics, gets onto him with the ultimate. Genetics uses the flash to get away from the call of the Forge God, but the Killer Instinct will be enough too to bring down the AD carry of Conduit Esports. Vanguard Glada has no backline to support him here, flashes over towards the red buff. Miyagi gonna close the gap. Grandma getting taken down by Hayasaka and Ronnie World both, who somehow was able to survive out of the Death Realm and is now exerting his revenge on the Mordekaiser, who's terrorized him all game long. The Light Binding can't connect. They can't finish off the Mordekaiser here. Teleports from Hayasaka, but you are very overextended right now. Now the TP from Gunman will help you out too, but they've lost their wave. This Baron didn't even go down, Potatoes. What the heck is going on? And Ronnie just got ditched, man. Oh my goodness. That is hilarious how that actually ended up happening. I don't think we're going to see the end of the game or the Baron go down either. How does neither of those two outcomes happen?
That is, yeah, maybe the least expected outcome we could have had here, but they do have a large wave marching down mid. However, I think Chinese Spy is just going to be able to collect all this farm, hoover it up with that black hole, and yeah, now finishing up the Void Staff should be a even bigger threat than ever before. And going back to that fight, if I'm Genetics, I'm not too happy, I think, with Krama ulting the Nami. I think the Kayn is really the key member of Odyssey for pretty much this whole game, and if Krama was going in to try and help them steal the Baron, then that's also a target you want to ult the Kayn. Now there's no smite, Glada can go in and steal, but it was a little too healthy, so I think a little out of sync maybe the order in which Conduit Esports approached that fight, but they do hold on to the game nevertheless.
They do. They're happy about it. And Glada's caught out. Well, maybe not caught out. He sees some people around his red buff. But now the thing with Cronus is they have control around the Baron side. In a minute's time, though, is that Aldris. Glada gets the sort of the +1 on the morale there with the steal over the red buff. And that's actually pretty important because it is the global red. But now we're going to see part 2 of the Baron start. 10k HP. It's down. It's ticking. Glada isn't really close to getting in here. I think Cronus is just going to be able to get this one, but the fight should ensue immediately afterwards. Too late on the drift here. Glada's going to zoom right out of there. Kramus here in the front line. There's going to be a Void Seeker that's going to connect onto Yipsy. This is prime time for Miyagi to get there into the backline, which he does, and takes down Genetics, goes into the Zanyas as well, which is perfect. Although Kramus here doing a good chunk of damage, but look at Cruel full HP. Ronnie World is going to be hit down by the Mordekaiser, but I think Cronus finally have what they need to take everyone out and take the win here in game number 1 with the Baron buff that they have and only Glada alive.
Krama doing what he can on this Mordekaiser, but this is another case where, positioning is really the name of the game for Conduit Esports, and they've got a Skarner stuck over the red buff wall as Odyssey Cronus is running into them. And so that is a major part of their front line that can help peel the threats from Odyssey off of their carries. And it looks like the game may be going into a close here.
It's certainly going to. Glada, you're going to have to watch your baseball, my friend. I'm sorry you don't have enough to be able to bring down the 3 people strong here from ODC. Finally, 46 minutes in. That's got to be one of the longest games we've had in Conqueror so far. I mean, there might have been a game longer than this, but if not, it's got to be top 3 at least, because that was an absolute grudge match between both teams. It was a really stalemate style mid game. There was constant fighting, but there wasn't a lot that was earned off of the fight wins. No Baron until like 36 minutes into the game. We went all the way to 7 Drakes before we even got an Elder, and didn't even get an Elder in the end. So an absolute drawn out match, but finally ODC, they can get that W in.
We saw a lot of good plays coming out from both sides, building leads in the early game, ping-ponging those back into even out the gold lead for Conduit over and over again. But very often, one team overstays a little bit, doesn't, find their resets in time. And so, yeah, the mid game really drawing out quite long there. But it is, in the end, Odyssey Cronus that comes out on top. I really liked the Lux pick this game. It felt like a really good way to neutralize the Aurelion Soul pick, because we've seen Chinese Spy play that a lot. I kind of wonder if that was something, Odyssey Cronus was, keeping in the back pocket as a counter specifically to that pick, which they anticipated.
It did very well, and it was 54,000 damage to come through from Cruel's Red Cane. Krama as well, 56k, doing work in the backside of a lot of these fights. And the game was so long, we're going to see damage numbers like this. But what a way to open this best of 3. But that was only the game number 1. Only game 1, if you can believe it. It feels like we've gone through a whole BO3 with that first game, and we will bring you the second installment between these two teams when we come back, at least, from this very short break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be bringing you game 2 very soon.
I see you, peekaboo, I see you, looking at me, looking at you. Hold up, where you going? What you doing? Who you seeing? What you need? What you want? I said, without you by my side, my side, my side. Without you by my side. One time from side to side. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. Without you by my side, I can't go outside. One time from side to side. all around the globe, trying to protect your soul.
And we are back for game number 2 in the Titan Conqueror League between Odyssey, Cronus, and Conduit Esports Vanguard, a Group A feature for this week. And Odyssey, Cronus were the ones after that long, bloody, brutal battle, 46 minutes, who took the very first game. And here we are into the draft for the second matchup between these two. If you're just joining us, I'm Ferris. That is Freedom Potatoes. We are your broadcasters for the day. And here we are into the game where these teams have swapped sides.
So we're going to see the Viego banned away initially from Conduit Esports. Now, I'm curious for them last game, getting ahead early and pretty much running away with the entire show. I've seen this banned against Odyssey in previous matches, and, you know, if I'm Conduit Esports, I'm probably just reaction banning that.
Yeah, it was very powerful here. It could also be a shakeup in the draft too, as the Skarner matchup was nice for Kane, as well as the Mordekaiser exploiting those two melee units in the early game. But there it is. You predicted it, Potatoes. They're not dealing with the Kane again. And I think, like you mentioning, that's very wise. I don't think Odyssey, Cronus going to be ones to change up anything in their bans. Either Yone, Aurora, Renekton. It's the same stuff. They don't want that Krama Renekton. They're much happier with that Mordekaiser if it comes through again. Although it was the R5 choice last time around. As a Amumu as a takeaway here, that was the trade-off. It was the Kane instead of the Amumu, so they decided to take it. Does Conduit Esports.
That's a highly contested pick for both of these teams, so makes sense that it was left open, and no surprise that it's picked up by Conduit immediately on the first pick. Responding now with a Jinx. That can be, you know, if Amumu goes too deep and hasn't built up much tankiness, the Jinx can get a free reset off of him. And an Ivern to protect the Jinx, looking like a protect the AD carry comp start off here for Odyssey Cronus.
Cruel is very comfortable on this Ivern pick. He's played it many times before, as I am familiar with this player. He loves to play that Ivern, and it pairs nicely with the Jinx. They are looking like they're playing for a scaling side team once again, similar to the way that they played it last time. We're on the other side. With this sort of red or the blue side 2-3, the Misfortune, the Leona, pair it up with an Amumu. There's so much setup for the bullet time, Potatoes.
There is so much setup, but I think that Odyssey has ways to disrupt it. You've got the Alistar, who with the headbutt and the pulverize has a couple ways to shut that down. Can break the CC and get counter engage. And now we're going into the second phase of bans as we see Camille taken away. Probably going to be a lot targeted at top and mid because that's what's left. And yeah, I just wanted to comment on, the flexibility we're seeing from Cruel Sun God here. Carry jungler in game 1, complete change of direction here with the Ivern in game 2. Really interested to see how that's going to go.
It's a very impressive change of pace. I expect to see cleanse from Miyagi in this game because with all that threat that is onto you, if you can get away from bullet time, that could buy you the space to get that first reset. It's all about the Jinx with this draft. I like the Alistar response into Yipsy's Leona. And the first pick on that second round of picks, it'll be the Ahri this time around for Hayasaka. So another change up as well. It was that mobile Lux, the control mage, zoning space here. Now on the mobile Ahri with the counter pick now for Chinese Spy in this Lissandra.
I think this is the first time we've seen the Lissandra from Chinese Spy in this league. And yeah, it is a counter pick to that Ahri, really going all in on that lockdown identity that Conduit Esports had selected. Now we've got the Gnar, pretty safe blind in the top lane. We'll see what they pick up for Gunman to respond to that with. And it's going to be the Jax. So a lot of, a few strong divers for the Ivern to shield up, who can buy a lot of space for the Jinx in these team fights.
It's going to be very much Cronus favored if the fights don't go exactly the way that Conduit Esports want them to. The danger of their composition comes from those plays where Jinx escapes your engage. They get a shield from Ivern that allows her to survive. Alistar thwarts your setup. In the case where Conduit get everything they want, their composition is powerful. But the same can be said for every single composition, and I think there's many tools. You mentioned it earlier in the draft when we first saw the Ivern pick. Daisy can be very disruptive. Then the Alistar pick rolled through. I'm liking Cronus' side of this. It doesn't mean that there's no way that Conduit can find what they want in this game, but it feels like you know exactly what they want to do. And if I'm thinking this from Cronus' perspective, it feels like you have a very solid blueprint as to how to stop the enemy team all the way or right off the bat from draft.
I've got to agree with that. Yeah, Conduit Esports, they have those, nice, simple, push the R button, win the team fight. That's how they want things to go. But they're going to have to get creative with the engages that they find, because Odyssey Cronus has all these disengage tools to peel for the Jinx. And if she can, find even a little bit of an overstep from one of those engagers on the side of Conduit, I think the team fight is quickly going to devolve into the Jinx and the Ahri finding those resets all over the place and carrying the whole thing.
The early game is what matters as well for CEV. They get outscaled like crazy. Ivern shields, Jax, Jinx. This is a hellish late game comp that ODC have drafted. So grubs, this is very important from Conduit Esports. You need to be winning these opening engages. You have to deny this powerful buff away and utilize it so that you can crack open towers earlier on. You can do it faster. If any cross map plays happen, you're the ones that are getting more value from those plays because you have that extra tower pushing power, and then you get that gold injected into your team to then snowball and make sure that no scaling can actually be done here by ODC. So it's already 1-0 for Cronus. I think, and you can give your elaboration on who you think is ending up on top here from the draft, but I think Cronus has the much more intuitive, much easier way to get to where they want to be, and there's a lot more pressure on the side of CEV.
With that, I think Odyssey Cronus can kind of sit back in the early game. If they're not dying early, they're pretty happy, because in those late game team fights, I think they outscaled pretty well. I think Conduit Esports is going to have to do some roaming. They're going to have to send the Lissandra down bot or have Leona come mid, especially if they can get kills onto the Ahri before she hits level 6. I think that's going to be really important, because that's when she's most vulnerable, when she doesn't have the Spirit Rush. And also if they can get the Gnar a little bit ahead, I think that's another lane they're going to want to look towards, because Gnar can bully a Jax early, but once it goes a little late, as soon as Jax finds that leap strike in with the counter strike as well, it's tough for Gnar to play if he hasn't already got himself ahead.
And if the Gnar is stuck into the side lane with Jax too, Jax is perfectly okay in this situation if he's winning. Where Gnar wants to get involved in these team fights, with the Gnar ability, you can get so much value there. But if you do devolve down to just the side lane with the Jax, I mean, you still have a Mumu, Lissandra, in Glacial, or Frozen Tomb rather, and the Solar Flare, things that can set up genetics for big ultimates. And they're very ultimate reliant. Without these key cooldowns, without Curse of the Sad Mummy, then their team fighting is a lot weaker. So these are timings that Cronus can look to find in this game where they know that their key ultimates aren't available, that they can actually find some value as. This is respect from both junglers. They know they're giving each other the tip of the hat. They head back over, and now it's game on.
I like to see the sportsmanship, walking up to each other, no autos, no abilities exchanged, just good luck, have fun, and they are off to their clears.
They're going to be, well, this is kind of difficult here as a non-Ivern player. I know Ivern's pathing is very all over the place. You can see Cruel set up his camps that he's going to be collecting later on. So I think the fact that he started here on the top side means he's going to be back there towards the level 3 mark and should be able to clear faster than this Amumu. So maybe we'll be able to get a good timing off here in the top side, if it is the top side that he is looking towards later on in the next couple of minutes, which would be huge if they can pull that off and get the Jax ahead this early.
Yeah, it's looking like a nicely optimized clear from Cruel Sun God. Clearly knows how to play this character. And the bot lane for Conduit Esports getting shoved in early. Now, Ronnie World wasn't quite able to find that Pulverize at level 1, but does find the level 2 engage.
And I can't believe that Genetics and Yipsy have lost priority here. This is not a lane that is bad for Misfortune Leona. There's not a single lane in the game that's bad for Misfortune Leona. This should be them who are, and maybe they actually gave priority over to get this gank to be able to come through. And they do get the flash off of Ronnie. So, you know what? It ends up working out for them since Glada actually did the full clear here. But no kills, Potatoes, means that Glada's actually going to be behind in camps, but Ronnie might just give them a freebie here. The Pulverize is good, but the second bandage toss will come through. This should be first blood here for Conduit, and maybe just a second kill too. And Cronus, they make the big misplay here early on.
Love the patience from Glada, just waiting in that bush after blowing the flash. They're able to collapse back in and get the first blood onto Alistar. And going over to its genetics on the Misfortune as well. Exactly where you want that to go, to see if they can, push this lead in bottom lane, maybe find some dragons, now that that's a point of pressure for them on the map.
They had the out and they just walked right back in here as it's going to be a big trades from Chinese Spy Hayasaka. And it's pulled Cruel over here who wants to look for the Scuttle Crab. But it's very close. Glada is hovering too. Has the flash available if a snap engage wants to happen. You talked about the importance of finding kills over the Ahri pre-6 here as Invade from Cruel. Going to steal away the blue buff, but has been spotted now. Probably has to flash away. Actually going to utilize the root to get closer to Grandma and his top laner. As a 2v2 might evolve here, Krama's going to transform into that Mega Gnar. It doesn't look like Cruel or Krama, or Gunman rather, want anything to do with it. They got what they came for, which was that blue buff, and they're getting out. As I say that, they're continuing to fight. So maybe they're not done just yet. Gunman is going to flash forward to try and find the stun. On the other side, Miyagi drops in the bot side. Genetics getting that kill credit, so bot lane going really well here for CEV.
CEV stacks up the wave and finds a kill, so Miyagi's going to miss out on so much here. Down 12 CS, which, it's not too much, but for the first few waves, that's a significant percent. And yeah, really well played in the early game from the side of, ooh, that is a close charm flash combo from Hayasaka. Almost finding the solo kill in this counter matchup. And I think Chinese Spy earlier actually might have had an opportunity for a solo kill too, but blew a little too much mana. I think if they had held the mana, flash W might have been enough to get a kill onto the Ahri, but it's always a little risky going for something like that, not knowing where the enemy jungler is. So it ends up being just a trade of flashes in the middle lane.
And Cruel is here in the bot side. They're actually making the engage is Yipsy, so this could prove to be detrimental now from the side of CEV. They're going to commit a teleport to this. I think this is a bit overkill. They should have this Leona in the bag. The Moomba's not making their way over. They should give this kill over. Well, okay, Hayasaka made the TP, so it makes sense to give the kill there. So Cronus, they get one back for themselves, and they're going to be feeling pretty happy about that, especially around the mid lane.
Yeah, pretty significant overstep from the side of Conduit Esports, not tracking that Ivern and the control ward from Odyssey's bot lane, helping the gank come through. Don't know if that TP was completely necessary, but you know, kill is a kill, and I like to see players, you know, looking towards other lanes instead of just always using the TP to get back to their own. Now, Chinese Spy held onto their TP for quite a while there. I think was waiting in base for an item or something, and that delayed their reset onto the map, which means even though Hayasaka commits the TP down to bottom lane, they don't really get too much of a shove in mid lane either.
It's still a CS lead for Hayasaka, so the R8 feeling good in the mid lane, has that kill, early cooldown boots, and it might prove to be a problem later on, is this Lissandra, but for the most part right now it's been feeling all right for ODC. Still down about 1k here as the play trying to be made Yipsy from the bot lane, but Ronnie's actually read this play. Now Chinese Spy could be in trouble with the headbutt pulverize, still has the frozen tomb to utilize here, but now stunned up, gets into it in the nick of time. Hayasaka has Spirit Rush available, but the last Q from Chinese Spy is enough. That is about as close as it gets here in this play, and it ends up being a 2-for-0 for Conduit.
Early game going so well for Conduit here, and they're going to need to continue pushing this tempo, but I like what I'm seeing from them so far, playing exactly how they need to set up a win this game. Oh, and there's going to be a pause as Hayasaka seems to have lagged or for some other reason disconnected.
Maybe rage quit, because that was that was so close to a kill, and you would have been able to get out with the Spirit Rush resets. But yeah, Frozen Tomb with 10 HP is absolutely insane. And Chinese Spy is on the board. The Lissandra counter pick is going to be able to get some newfound strength in the game. You can see Glada and Yipsy on the map right now. They're heading towards the Grubs, and they have the two-person advantage on the map. Cruel is busy dealing with the wave. And you and I, Potatoes, we talked about the importance of Grubs for this team that has to win the early game. It looks like they're following their game plan so far. They're going to get that first trio. They also have priority top side too. So this bodes well for them and keeping the pace towards their very swift victory that they need to obtain over this high scaling Cronus side, as I think we saw the reconnection there from Hayasaka. So we should be pulling out of this pause soon.
Yeah, hopefully we can get out of this pause soon. There it is. So Grubs should be going over to Conduit. Question I have now is, will they be able to also get the dragon? Because if they can, that's going to be huge for them. Amumu demolishes these Grubs so quickly, and Chinese Spy has the teleport to get onto the map as well. So there's no guarantee that Odyssey can trade this dragon.
And we see the freeze here. That is the typical client issue that Riot Games has not yet fixed. So this is very normal after a pause, so don't worry about that. Nothing breaking on the stream side. We're right back into the action. Yes, Chemtech Drake. It hasn't been traded here from Cronus. The Grubs have been taken now, so they have time to move down there. Could make a play onto Gunman, who has his wave pushing away from him now.
And Genetics is going to use the ult to clear out the wave.
Okay, Genetics is, yeah, using that, but Miyagi Flash actually used from Cruel to save his AD carry. Genetics without a flash themselves has to be careful because Miyagi doesn't want to give away a free kill. The kill onto Ivern is nice. He'll get some extra shielding later on, but big pickup here for ODC in the bot lane.
You can see that Miyagi really wanted the kill, but plays just far back enough to kind of bait Genetics into, you know, going back and forth and eventually dropping. Could give it overkill to this Misfortune, though. That auto Q combo can do a lot of damage with this, you know, Serrated Dirk picked up early.
It looks like it's just going to be a straight Youmuu's with the Rectrix buy. I was thinking maybe Collector purchase, but with the Rectrix, I think it was actually just going to be a raw lethality build, maybe first lethality item into the full crit like we saw from the Caitlyn as well. Bunch of different things in Misfortune can go, but off the back end of that play, Potatoes, they grab the dragon, so unable to get both is CEV, but still, I think they're going to be happy with the gold lead that they have for the moment. But if it stays this way, that's when the trouble starts to arise.
Yeah, just as I was saying that, you know, Conduit Esports might be able to have their cake and eat it too. Its genetics walks a little too close to the wave to ult it down. I thought they could have done that from a lot farther away, but instead they were basically in melee range of the Alistar, who just walks up and finds the Q, and that sets up the kill on the other side.
It's a pretty glaring CS deficit though for Miyagi. They took the Drake, they pulled the Jinx over to help, but now they lose that entire wave down there. It's going to be completely denied as Chinese Spy didn't take the travel there to look for some type of kill, but this Jinx is suffering right now. And I said that when they lost Prio, immediately did Yipsy and Genetics. I was like, this doesn't make a lot of sense because this should just be MF Leona absolutely running this lane, and they are running this lane right now as Grandmaster's Might comes through for Gunman. Gonna jump back in with the counter strike, but can't dodge away from Krama's stun, so that should devolve the rest of that 1 versus 1. As Glada finds Miyagi, though, with the Curse of the Sad Mummy. Miyagi has a cleanse. Might be able to get out of this one. Solar Flare lands, but the extra tenacity is going to be so nice there from that Summoner Spell. The flash bullet time is good here from Genetics. Solo kill potentially for Chinese Spy as well. Flash away from Hayasaka to escape. But across the map, it's wins for CEV.
CEV continuing to apply the pressure in the early game, almost getting the solo kill mid, and another kill in the bottom lane. Also blowing the summoners from Jinx.
Chinese Spy in trouble. Daisy is here. Cruel is here. The fadeaway auto attack isn't going to be good. 1 HP once again here for Chinese Spy. This is so tilting for Cruel and Hayasaka. Twice now, this player has gotten away as Glada uses the bandage toss as a taxi with the flash to bring him to Hayasaka to finish off the kill. Daisy, though, will get that one. Cruel now with 2 kills in his pocket. And Chaos here in the mid lane.
Some deep aggression from Glada to find that kill onto the Ahri. I like, you know, getting the counter matchup even further ahead for you, but it is a bit of a shutdown over to the side of Odyssey as well, with the Amumu dropping at the end of that. No, Ivern doesn't need too much gold, but as soon as he hits those first items, it does make him a lot stronger. Kind of an interesting thing on this patch that I just wanted to briefly mention is Riot's made shutdowns like granular. They aren't like a fixed amount, like 150 or something. It's like you can go like, you know, like 80, 85, like it's a sliding scale now. So even if you don't see a shutdown on someone's name, there still might be a little extra gold you can pick up by killing them, which I think might have been the case in that play made.
Yes, they did overhaul the bounties like that. Let's pay attention to what happens here because this would be 6 grubs from the side of CEV. They don't have Curse of the Sad Mummy for this play, and Gunman is here, so it's 3 versus 2. Late to the play is Chinese Spy. They pick up the first kill, and denying the 6 grubs would be huge. Now, Void Mites has been acquired by Conduit, but the kill and the 2 stealed here, Potatoes, this is huge for the side of Odyssey to stall.
Yeah, denying that second Void Might is going to make it a little tougher for Conduit Esports to play on those side lanes.
Oh, but out of the travel, Chinese Spy has been locked up here. Going to use the Frozen 2 onto Hayasaka. Do they have the damage? They do! The lockdown is insane from the Lissandra. This is at best going to go 1 for 1 for ODC. Shut down to Cruel as Gunman now initiates the 1 versus 1 against Krama out of the Meganar, but is able to kite away from this. Gunman has to play safe. And mid lane, I mean, that's really good here for Chinese Spy.
Yeah, this time Chinese Spy gets the favorable side of the draft with the counter pick and is showcasing that, you know, if they get counter pick, they can do some nasty things too.
They absolutely can. His Gunman is just going to drop here the flash, followed here from Krama. So thankfully didn't die to that initial auto attack, so did still get the flash out of Krama, but this is an unfortunate solo kill now. The Gnar going to take over, deny this wave. Already has a couple plates too, and that is going to be feeling very nice for them. Should have no problem in the next couple minutes holding this Jax in the 1v1. It's a big solo kill there.
Yeah, if the Gnar can keep matching Jax on the side lane, that's really important for the side of Conduit Esports because it eliminates a major split push threat and gives them their own threat as well, because, you know, this Gnar can offer so much value in team fights with the ult to engage, as well as, yeah, being a persistent threat to the towers on side who can play pretty safe with the hop to get out of there if things, if ODC sends some members after him.
Well, Ronnie World has shot that blast cone right into Chinese Spy's face, who will commit the Frozen Tomb. Ronnie is going to use the Unbreakable Will, and so that is ult for ult. I think that doesn't really matter in the scope of this Infernal Drake, because it looks like for the side of Odyssey Cronus, they want to just make the trade with the push on the top side to grab up that Rift Herald as the other side, CEV, hits away onto that Infernal Drake. And when you're the team that's behind, I think you're not really too upset about this. Bullet time here from Miyagi, can't quite get out. You got to step a little bit farther downwards. That's just a raw solo kill right there.
That is surprising solo kill. Genetics standing under the turret, but is able to just tank it up as the bullet time rips through Miyagi's health. And yeah, that hitbox, sometimes just a little deceptive. Sometimes it doesn't look like those waves are quite going to be hitting you, but they do. And that is another kill over to Genetics, who's now 4-1 on this Misfortune. Should probably be picking up a second item off this reset, if not, at least getting quite close to it. Way ahead of pretty much anyone else in this game right now.
If it wasn't for how devastating this bot lane looks, I would say Odyssey Cronus is well on their way to getting to the late game spike they want. The mid lane is tough, but it's nothing insurmountable here for Hayasaka. The bot lane, though, is looking brutal. It's almost double the CS for Genetics. 2 items on the Misfortune. This Jinx is only 70 farm here at the 15-minute mark. You cannot start to participate in these mid-game fights, otherwise you're never going to get any gold. You want to sit back and farm, but your team doesn't really have the time to do it. So Cronus, they have a pretty big problem for them down here. We'll see how they try and remedy that as the push comes through in the mid lane.
Yeah, that Jinx is so behind right now. I think Odyssey is really going to want her to just sit on the side lane, get farmed safely as much as possible, but in the meantime, they're probably going to be dropping a lot of objectives across the map. It's good for them that there's no dragon for 3.5 minutes, Baron's not up for 4, but these turrets are definitely under threat, as they're trying to collapse onto Krama in the top side.
Krama is now mini, no flash. This should just be a dead Gnar, so good 2v2 utilization here from Gunman and Cruel. The kill on the Jax is also very nice. Super Mega Death Rocket goes wide. The trade on the other side is the tier 1 in the mid lane. And Charm goes wide. Genetics playing with confidence.
Yeah, walking up to 2 characters that can be pretty deadly. The Alistar combo and the Ahri Charm. Both lethal if they connect there, but Genetics says, I don't care. I'm going to get a little damage off on you, get those first strike procs, and laugh straight to the bank with it.
They're looking at Genetics right now. Flash is available, and that movement speed from the strut is insane. Able to strut his way on out of that situation after clearing away that control ward. Yipsy goes on to Ronnie. They're actually going to commit bullet time too. Ronnie flashes away from this one. I feel like the Alistar was tanking up, but this is a pretty good start to the fight for Odyssey Cronus. Yipsy now has flash to try and get out. The root will land here. Ronnie World is on top of him. Give the kill over to Jinx. That's what you would want, but it's ended. Ronnie World gets it with the Aftershock proc. But it's a kill nonetheless for ODC. Does the play continue now? They're trading back and forth. Lada's going to fish for a bandage toss that's going to go wide. ODC, a nice pickup for them in the mid lane.
Nice pickup for ODC, but a lot of their kills are going onto the characters you don't necessarily want them on. 3 kills on the Ivern, now 1 on the Alistar.
Root lands plus the charm. This might just be, okay, Chinese Spy going inside a Frozen Tomb, flashing away as well. And is going to be able to escape out of that one using all the tools in his bag. So Summoner Spell is forced here from Odyssey Cronus. Gunman now is completely out of mana. Has the flash to get away, gets away from the stun. The next boulder doesn't quite have the damage. Can Crow flash to get the stun off? And the shield, he can do it. Krama doesn't have the range on the stun. Now into the mini form, needs to hobble his way on out of here, but can't escape from the Ivern. He's too oppressive. Cruel picks up another kill. Glad at half HP inside of the jungle. This could be an angle here for Cronus to pick up some more kills. The shield onto Ronnie World to keep himself alive. Glada is going to fall before the curse of the Sad Mummy can go through. This is a massive play. Cruel collecting all the kills. The most fed Ivern you've ever seen.
We might have to see the Ivern start building AP or something at this point, because ODC does need a damage threat.
Flare Genetics commits the flash. This is going to be another misplay as Hayasaka might just go right back in. The charm goes wide. Genetics, they're fishing. They're getting way too over aggressive here.
Yeah, I like the ult from the Leona to look and fish and at least, if nothing else, interrupt the recall from the Ahri and, maybe find some tempo for setting up this dragon. But the flash commit from the Misfortune is way too aggressive because, I mean, you're really the bulk of your team's damage here. By far the most fed person in this game, except maybe that Ivern. And having no flash when there's an Alistar and an Ahri that can dive you is pretty scary.
Ahead of the 30 seconds to go for this Infernal Drake. No flash on the 80 carry. You're absolutely right. It's scary here. If there was a couple more kills on this Jinx, maybe if 3 of Cruel's kills were in Miyagi's hands in these fights that have been breaking out, this would be a really good situation for Cronus. And they'd probably be in position where you could say that it's their game to lose. But their Jinx is still so far behind. Look at the item difference here. I'd actually like to see how much gold ahead Genetics is. So if we could pan over to that, thank you so much to our observer. It's 4,000 potatoes. That is horrifying here. As Genetics is just running him down. Look at the damage the bullet time committed. They get the flash off of Miyagi. So it's a big ultimate use, but also a big cooldown used as well.
Hey, with this dragon fight coming up, if Odyssey thought they had any chance of taking it, this could be the timer. With Genetics having no flash, and Miyagi having a flash of their own, that might have been, a little chance to look for them and see if they can get the Jinx into the game. It looks like they're going to look for top tower here.
They're going on to Krama. Nice double bounce there. They're going to dive onto this Gnar, but I think he's going to transform here. I think he should have pulled him right into the wall there because that could have prevented or sort of set up for that 1 versus 2. But now that the tower is down, give the kill to Gunman. Very good heads-up play here on the cross map.
It's so close from Krama, but yeah, like you said, the ult could have gone the other direction to guarantee the stun. Also a bit maybe disconnected on the target focus to start off for Odyssey, where I think the Jax was hitting the turret, but then they look for the dive onto the Gnar immediately instead. And the tower almost takes out Ronnie World on the Alistar, but that is a tanky cow who is able to just barely live at the end of it all. And yeah, good look from Odyssey to find that dive, find themselves a tower, and bring the gold lead ever so slightly closer.
The gold lead is purely from Genetics right now. The only last issue to solve for Cronus is the Jinx, and they are in a pretty solid spot. Their Jax has 3 kills, their Ivern is fed beyond belief. Hayasaka's doing okay, is a little bit behind here, but it's an early Seekers invested from Chinese Spy, so isn't behind in the full item just yet. Those item completions are very important to your overall strength. They're much more gold efficient than those components. So the rest of the map looks good for them. They even got that Chemtech Drake earlier on, remember. So the fact that they gave that last Hextech, they're not in threat of losing the soul for another 10 minutes. And if they could get to that 31-minute mark, that would be fantastic for them. So they're not really under any pressure to contest anything either.
Yeah, it's not like Conduit Esports can just walk up and take the Baron. And
Chinese Spy's in trouble here. Cruel Sun, God, and Gunman have been the duo here for Cronus. These two are putting on an absolute clinic, and they add another pick to their list.
Krama had that solo kill earlier onto Gunman and almost a second one, but ever since Cruel Sun God burned that flash shield to save Gunman's life, he has been popping off on the Jax, getting that dive onto the Gnar now, and an additional kill onto Chinese Spy, who just couldn't quite get the ult off in time. And honestly, even if he did, I don't think he survives that because the leap strike cooldown is so short.
Well, Miyagi's certainly going to drop here. No flash, but the bullet time didn't finish him off. He's bought himself enough space. Now Hayasaka jumping here onto Genetics, who has a flash of his own. The Pulverize is going to send him to safety. Ronnie Road will flash over the wall to try and finish it off, but this is a disaster right now in this fight for Cronus. TP coming through. I do believe that's going to be Chinese Spy out of the Death Realm. Now Gunman locked up here inside of the front line. He's going to be hit by that Frozen Tomb. He's tanky. He has a lot of damage. Miyagi does get a reset, but the fight win nonetheless. It's disaster for Cronus just as things were going so well for them.
It's Genetics almost gets caught there, but Ronnie Emerald with the headbutt unfortunately saves him and then flashes to follow and find the kill, but Conduit Esports collapse on that Alistar over the wall with the Leona ult and the Amumu bandage toss. And yeah, Genetics gets to hold on to that shutdown. And yeah, another team fight in their favor, another turret over to them. And we should see some more item completions coming in for that mid and bot for those carries. on the side of Conduit Esports. We'll see if they can set up for this dragon and push the lead in these next few minutes.
Genetics didn't have to burn Flash in that fight because Ronnie sent them over the wall, which is hilarious and also very important because having no Flash is very dangerous when there's a Jax and an Ahri who will be hunting for you in the backside when you are the majority of the team's damage. So this is huge for them in upcoming fights that do happen. It's tough for Miyagi in that early play that happened where you're caught out in the mid lane. You just want to step up to these waves and get farm, but you're just not in a position to hold your ground and do anything in this game. And I'm just going to circle back to the point that it is probably the biggest detriment right now from Cronus is the fact that their bot lane is so weak that they can't make all the plays that they want to be making right now. And so they really need that Jinx to get onto 2-3 items, and then is the point where she feels in a comfortable spot with that Infinity Edge to actually start to contest some things.
Even with the early kill that Odyssey found in that fight, you know, Jinx getting her first kill of the game, the reset really didn't mean much because, yeah, it's so risky. Ooh, Ronnie World looking for the Hex Flash play, but doesn't quite find it. And it's dangerous for the Jinx to walk up right now because unless you can chain those resets together.
Cruel has to burn Flash, and they're going to go for this fight regardless. They're jumping immediately onto Genetics, going to cancel that ultimate from him. It's huge damage that they get, but again, the Flash is big. The first kill of the fight goes towards Cronus, but look at Chinese Spy in the middle of everyone. That Frozen Tomb was huge. Ronnie World gets onto the ADC, but there is no follow-up here. This should just be Chinese Spy running this play. Miyagi's still alive. They get the second kill there. A reset here for Miyagi inside of the Counter-Strike keeps the Jax alive, but the passive is so big. The Lissandra was everything there for CEV.
Quadra kill over to Chinese Spy, finds a 4-man engage with the root into the Frozen Tomb, and then the passive gets 2 people for the price of 1 at the very end there. Great fight from Conduit Esports. It looked like Odyssey might have found the pick on its Genetics, but like you mentioned, the Flash was still up, the barrier was still up, so it's hard to find that kill onto this Fed Misfortune, who's now 8-1. They're gonna grab the inhibitor and run down towards this dragon. The respawns are coming in from Odyssey, but I don't know if they'll be able to contest this, as they're just a little bit late.
The wise choice would be to give this one up, I think. Unless they feel, hey, no Flash on the Misfortune, we can really make this happen. The reset actually hasn't come through from Genetics, so sitting at half HP, all ready to start this fight might be a plus side here. Gunman is going to be late to this play. Ronnie World here. Krama also isn't Mega, and there's not a lot of ultimates available, so this could be a very bloody fight. Look at Gunman onto the backside. They got Genetics. This is huge for Cronus. We talked about having no ultimates being the detriment potentially to the CEV team. We're seeing that on display right here. Gunman trying to find the stun into the Frozen Tomb. Goes Chinese Spy. Yipsy trying to buy some time here for his mid laner, but will drop. And this is the game-changing play for Cronus because they can take the Drake and they can run coast to coast for the Baron.
Odyssey Cronus might have just found their way back into this game, and it's off the back of some greed from its Genetics, because it seemed like the call was pretty clear from Conduit Esports. We get the inhib, we take the portal out, and now we're going to do Dragon. But Genetics goes to hit the bot wave instead, thinking that the rest of the team can solo Dragon, or not solo, I guess, do Dragon without them before the enemies show up. But those gates also help Odyssey make the rotate in, and without the Misfortune damage, the Dragon takes a while to go down, and it ends up being Odyssey that gets it. Now they're looking for the Baron, and if Genetics face checks this, it might be a second kill over to the side of Odyssey.
I think this actually could go horrible for Cronus right now. They're here, they're ready to go, but Ronnie flashes onto Genetics to pulverize backwards, but there's no follow-up. This is going to get dangerous. Curse of the Sad Mummy available. There as it is, and that's the bullet time too. It's the exact opposite play, but this time the recipients of the ace are going to be Odyssey. Cronus, they didn't have the damage for the Baron. They just pulled off the counter throw. Everything they had in front of them just got ripped right back out of their hands.
A glimmer of hope for Odyssey Cronus, but it's immediately shattered by the team fighting comp from Conduit Esports. The Curse of the Sad Mummy and the bullet time come through. I've got to give props to Genetics. He got hit by the Alistar knockup and tried to wait out also the Stampede, I think it is, the E, so that he could get a little bit more time with that ult. And it works. It's enough damage to find the kills that they need to, even if the Alistar did eventually interrupt it. So now Conduit Esports rocking the Baron. They're only on 2 dragons, but I think they should be able to get a few more turrets here and put themselves in a good position to close this game out.
I have to agree with you there. It was solid from Ronnie Worlds. Had the headbutt onto Genetics like you were talking about, just no follow-up there. It could have been good still. I think it was too greedy for them in the end, obviously, to go for the Baron there. The Hextech gates have proven to be positives for both of these teams when reclaiming the pits for these objectives. And now back to square one is Cronus. And honestly, square one doesn't look as nice as it did previously because I feel like they're even more in the hole here. 8,000 down in the Baron here for the side of CEV. Your Jinx doesn't even have 2 items yet. It just doesn't feel good. And you feel like with these towers that they might be able to take out with this Baron push could spell very close to the end of the game here for ODC, just like you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, the wave clear is not so good for ODC, so these Baron empowered waves should give CEV a solid chance to take at least one more inhib, if not 2. And it looks tough for Odyssey to find their way into these fights. Gunman might look for a flank here, but I don't know if they have the follow-up for it.
The retreat is in for ODC. They see Gunman isolated. They want to look for him. Leap Strike is nice. Glada found his way onto Ronnie World. Curse of the Sad Mummy onto only one, so that's really not that good. Genetics is flashed away, isolated in a 1 versus 1 against Gunman. This is definitely going to go the way of the Jax now. How is the other side of the fight looking? It doesn't look that bad for Odyssey Cronus. Miyagi is still alive, going to get back into range towards Chinese Spy, who's going to put the Frozen Tube here onto the Iron Flash away from Miyagi. Krama as well fighting with Gunman down here. Chinese Spy is still healthy. Yipsy gets onto Miyagi, who should be able to finish him off. The Leona is higher level here than the Jinx. I think this is going to be the end of the game after this crazy fight into the Zanyas. Goes both the mid laners here. Can Hayasaka time this nicely? He can and will find the kill. Teleport here from the Jax to get back here with 1 HP. The Nexus Tower is still so healthy, but there's so many minions for both Yipsy and Krama. They just have to hit onto the Nexus. What can Gunman do to save this game for Cronus? It looks like he can do it, but the counter strike is down. Krama has the spacing. Hayasaka can't land the charm because there's minions in front of him. Ronnie World is now out of the base, but Krama's just gonna hit onto the Nexus, and that will be the end of game 2. 2 of the craziest games you could possibly ask for here in this series, and they are all locked in for one more.
What an end to that game. I thought that Genetics was going to have some choice words for his team because he got totally ditched in that fight as they dove the enemy backline. But it ends up working out. Chinese Spy finds a few kills, and even though he goes down in the end, they're able to clean up the rest of the fight as Miyagi gets 1v1 by the Leona. Really sad to see if you're an ADC player to lose to the enemy support. So it is Conduit Esports with the win in the end.
And they hold on to the belief that they can break into the upper echelon of the standings here in the Titan Conqueror League with a win here. Cronus, though, they took that loss, but they still have the chance to bring it back in game number 3. It was really just the collapse of that bot lane that they couldn't really recover from. They had that opportunity there around the Drake. It looked good, but the Hextech gates, they're just not expecting the other team to get back on their feet after getting aced like that so quickly. Both teams fell victim to that with critical mistakes, but it still went the way of CEV in the end, thanks to their really strong early game that they had. But that wraps up game number 2, and we'll bring you the series decider after this very short break. So don't go anywhere. There's still one more match on its way.
walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul.
We have one more game between Odyssey, Cronus, and Conduit Esports Vanguard inside of the Titan Conqueror League here. It's been a wild series, a 46-minute game number one that was drawn out maybe a little bit longer than it should have, to an absolute stomp of what it looked like for CEV in game two. And then Cronus pulled it back just to have it ripped away from them once again. So it's been a roller coaster of a series here at Freedom Potatoes, and I'm ready to see how it all concludes here in game number three.
So much action so far this series. Great team fights with a lot happening all over the place on the map. I'm excited to see what we've got in this next game, so let's get into draft.
Let's get into it. It was quite the successful draft for CEV in game number two, and they were on the red side. So this time, Odyssey Cronus taking that loss, they select the blue side once again. 100% win rate here for blue side in this series. We'll see what they cook up for them. But the heavy emphasis on the team fighting was the key to victory there for CEV.
They drafted themselves quite the team fight comp, and you had some questions about whether they would be able to execute it into the disengage and the peel tools that Odyssey had drafted. And in the end, it was CEV finding that win off the back of a huge performance from their bot lane, stomping the early game and transitioning that into the finish in the end.
We're going to see a Mumu ban now from Conduit on the red side. So a pick that brought them a lot of success. Now they're not willing to give over to Ronnie World, who's been playing that very much in the Conqueror League. The Leona ban was the adaptation, so Aurora is open here. It might just be the B1 pick for Cronus, because Hayasaka has played it, like you mentioned, Potatoes, in previous drafts twice, but instead they are going to prioritize the Caitlyn first for Miyagi. Potential takeaway from Genetics, who pulled it out in game one.
Yeah, they were definitely feeling the pain from that Caitlyn in game number one, and I'm curious to see if they'll build similarly with the lethality of this game or go straight into the crit. Ashe now being picked up as a response, pick that offers a lot of utility, not as much raw damage, but can easily set up picks, and there's a Nocturne too. So if Nocturne can get in on someone and they follow up with an Ashe ult or vice versa, that's an easy kill over for the CEV.
Some heavy dive and pick potential here as, wow, we see a Cruel Hecarim locked in. That is spicy. We know Cruel to be a player who can play the carries. We saw his performance in game number one with the Kayn. Really respectable performance on the Ivern in game two, but the Hecarim now is insane. And pair it up with an Enchanter too. Champions like Olaf and Hecarim who are running in a straight line love those Enchanters, so the Seraphine is a solid one to pair it up with as well.
I think the carry jungler for Cruel Sun God is a smart move. I think Cruel Sun God has shown a lot of strength on those characters. I think, showing up to be probably one of the strongest players on that roster. So, playing into his strengths is going to be good. The Seraphine pairs great with that, giving the move speed and the heal and shielding to keep the Hecarim alive and dealing extra damage in the team fights.
And the Thresh here for the side of Yipsy and Conduit. Pick potential. Caitlyn doesn't really like to play against Thresh. It's the fact that she wants to play aggressive with her Seraphine and walk straight up to you underneath the tower. The death sentence is always something you have to keep in the back of your mind. So a nice pickup here for Conduit could prove useful against the high range that Seraphine and Caitlyn offer in the bot lane.
Yeah, the death sentence, the flash flay, the Ashe ult. There's a lot of ways for Conduit Esports to threaten that Caitlyn, especially if she stands still for like an ult or a Q. And its Genetics going to be back on the Asol. Didn't have such a great time in game number one, but we'll see it run back here, and the Galio is going to be the answer into that. Galio has a decent amount of threat, I think, in the early game, with the knock-up and the taunt to set up ganks. But as the game goes later, I'd expect to see Aurelian's will be quite a problem for something shorter range like that.
It's going to be a big pileup in the front line, which kind of makes me think about the encore value that we're going to get potentially with that running through the entirety of the team. We have more engage rolling through with a Kennen for Krama. So not something that strikes me as a Krama pick. This player has pulled out the Bruisers, the Mordekaisers in Conqueror. Not the Kennen here as a ranged counter to the Jax, but the Gnar was his choice in game 2. They didn't decide to run it back with that pick. I mean, I feel like that would have fit nicely here. They decide instead to go for the Kennen here, which I feel is a little bit harder to execute on. So I'm anticipating and excited to see how Krama performs on this Kennen pick.
With range top laners, you really want to build the early lead with the Kennen, because if the game goes late, you don't have a ton of access to wave clear, and the Jax can eventually threaten you under your own turrets if he gets the lead for himself. Now, Kennen offers a lot of team fighting, but I do question how he'll be able to find his way into these fights. Because, you know, the Encore from Seraphine can provide a lot of AoE healing and shielding to counteract the AoE from the Kennen ult. So if he goes too deep, I think there's definitely a risk of that backfiring as a pick. But he has played it at least once or twice here in the Conqueror League, so I have confidence that he might be able to pull out a similar performance as he did on the Gnar.
And thinking back to Cruel's Hecarim pick, what really Hecarim doesn't like to play into is a lot of crowd control. There is crowd control here for Conduit, but there's not a lot of reliable CC. Thresh misses a death sentence, Hecarim's running around your whole team. You use Enchanted Crystal on someone else, Hecarim's running your whole team. You want that slicing Maelstrom to go onto the back line, not the Hecarim who's diving your back line. Cruel played a champion just like this that was completely unleashed in game 1. They tried to go to the more team-focused pick in game 2, didn't work as well. This is their adaptation now back towards unlocking him as a jungler, and I think Gunman's Jax too, it was really nice in game 2, so I think that's a solid choice to go back to in the top lane as well.
Odyssey's got such a strong death ball. You can easily send the Hecarim deep into the backline with that unstoppable ult, and then setting up, you know, Seraphine ult to ricochet off of people and go even deeper. Have the Galio follow up with the heroic entrance. I really like the style of team fighting that Odyssey is bringing to the table here. But you know, a lot of it can just come down to the early game. I think whoever builds a lead is going to have their condition pretty clearly outlined. Picks for Conduit Esports and just death balling for Odyssey. So if you can force the other team to play the way you want, I think that's going to be an easy way to find a victory here.
And when we talk about early game, it's always the junglers, maybe not always, but junglers are a big part about that early game success, and they kind of dictate the pace of how the team is playing. The first game, we saw lots of invades early on from Cruel, bringing laners down with him to try and find kills in the jungle. I expect the same thing might happen. This is a way that Cruel likes to play when he has these carries in his hands. And up against Glada's Nocturne now, who wants to unlock Paranoia as fast as possible to unlock that playmaking potential of the Nocturne, needs the full clears, needs all of those camps to get. Now, if they deny a lot of that, that could really de-escalate the pressure that Conduit is able to put onto Cronus here without that Paranoia getting there very quickly, as we're starting off just the way we did in game 2 with the respect coming through from both of the junglers in the mid lane.
Maybe this is a sort of a good luck charm for Conduit, you know? That's how they started last game, and they won
True.
it. We didn't see it in game 1, and that's the one they lost. And something else I wanted to touch on briefly is the mid-jungle combinations for these teams. Because if you're looking at the side of Conduit Esports, their champions don't really offer a lot pre-6. Whereas on the side of Odyssey Cronus, Galio and Hecarim both have more reliable access to crowd control, and I think just a stronger 2v2 in general than what Conduit has drafted here. So they're going to look, yeah, they're going to look to, I think, get aggressive, you know, maybe contest Scuttle Crabs, contest those Grubs or Dragons early on, see if they can use that strength early on.
For sure. It's been a while since I've seen Hecarim in competitive league. So, you know, I mean, you can trust Cruel to bring out the fun champions, the Kanes, the Hecarims. You'd love to see it now, as it's do or die for both Conduit and Odyssey Cronus here. And they're both sitting at 1-1. And this is the game to decide it. The 4th place Conduit and the 5th place Cronus, in the middle of the pack matchup now. It's going to 3 games. It's about as good of a series as you want it now, as into the lane phase we are, and to see how this game pans out. And it looks like both sides here, blue side starts for the junglers, pathing, probably going to be full clearing. The real question is back to what we were talking about in draft, is the invade going to come through on the top side or not?
These teams are, yeah, so perfectly matched for each other, I think, in these 2 games we've seen, and I hope we get to see a lot more of that action as we go a little deeper into this game. And it looks like Glada's going to fancy themselves a level 3 gank. Not the most common from Nocturne, but Odyssey is very far up.
Not something that Miyagi and Ronnie World were expecting. Death Sentence is going to be flashed away from, but Glada will get the extra movement speed. Ronnie World should go down here once the fear comes through, and they get the early kill onto Glada, which is nice. Miyagi trying to trade one back, but Genetics has barrier here. So if they get an extra kill off of this, that would also be insane. Miyagi so close, 1 HP here on this Caitlyn, but this really feels bad for them.
The health bars are so low for Glada and for Genetics, but they get another early kill off the back of a level 3 gank from their jungler. And, you know, you'd think maybe after what happened in game number 2, Odyssey would try to be a little more cognizant of that and watch out for that threat. Now, Nocturne isn't usually a champion that does level 3 ganks, but if you present them an opportunity like that, with, you know, a hard shove coming in from the Caitlyn and the Seraphine, why not take a freebie?
There is a minus to this play, and we saw it happen on the minimap, which was Cruel took away the Raptor camp and the red buff from Glada. Immediately saw this, as we do see disconnection, will probably lead us into a pause, but we can talk about the implications of that play that we just saw in the bot lane. This will now be down in camps for Glada, has the Krugs alive here, and is just going to realize now that the red buff is gone. There's still 3 camps up on Cruel's top side to clear away. Still a Scuttle Crab down towards the bot side too. So the plus side for Cronus could be this massive lead that the Hecarim is actually going to be able to get here in these next couple minutes.
I think so much of Cronus's game here is going to rely on the Hecarim, so him being able to invade topside and get those camps, yeah, it's huge, because that farm lead will, you know, continue to snowball. And yes, Glada did get the kill, but I don't know if that's where you want it necessarily. I mean, having a fed Nocturne means you can ult in and be much more of a threat yourself. But yeah, Hecarim's made up like just as much of that advantage on his own side of the jungle, it looks like, with the 12 CS lead.
And we'll see how much of that lead, if it comes through, because there's a whole bunch of different things that can be done. The one thing is that the red side isn't up for Cruel because he started on the bot side. So there isn't really a cross map play right now for Glada. And you're not playing a champion that can just say, okay, I have no camps alive. I'm just going to go brute force a gank somewhere. Something that like a Vi would be able to do. But the Nocturne doesn't really have that luxury. You really want Paranoia unless someone's gift wrapping you that kill. So I think this lead is almost certain to come through for Cruel. And the actual time that we might actually see the lead in action is on these first Drake and Grub timers. Maybe the Drake first here for Cronus, since they are going to have that priority. At least they had it there with their bot lane. So that's going to be the times that we're going to see sort of their power really come online. And then maybe he hits level 6 first for the Unstoppable Onslaught.
I think Dragon is going to be a major play here. So despite the kill going over to Conduit Esports, Miyagi still has the summoner spells on his Caitlyn, which means he can walk up and auto the wave, you know, pretty safely. It's going to be at least a little tricky for Thresh to get a kill. Even if the hook lands, there's no guarantee of any follow-up for quite a while. And so yeah, if Odyssey can continue pushing in this bottom lane and getting priority with the, you know, double casted Qs from Seraphine alongside the Piltover Peacemaker from Caitlyn, I think that should give them easy dragon setup. And yeah, I think pre-6 they have a decently large advantage if there is a fight that breaks out there.
Easy targets they will be if they push up. And now we do see the reconnect come through from Ronnie World. So I do believe in the next couple of seconds we'll get that unpause and we'll be ready to roll right through into the game. Perfect timing too, because I was just getting to that point where I was feeling like maybe we should cut that to a break to see if they can figure out that situation that they had, but it is figured out. They got their support back. We should be rolling in this game, and there we go, back onto the Rift we are. We're going to see, let's pay attention, as we just talked so much about the jungles and how Cruel can get a massive lead here with the 2 camps that he stole away. Now can he really convert onto that?
So the wave for Gunman now is bouncing towards Krama, and I know you said that Nocturne can't just brute force a gank, but he does have the option to look up there despite the lack of tools. And there is a bit of a freeze happening once again after the pause, but we're back. Yeah, I think Gunman's in a pretty tough spot here. As actually Krama might be able to just find a kill here.
Really close to getting solo killed. It's tough. You're going to have to reset, burn the TP. Nothing else you can really do in that situation. But there is a couple camps coming up now. The respawns are through here for Glada, so it can still path down, collect up some of those. Stacked up wave here for Miyagi. Let's see if this summoner spell advantage that you smartly pointed out here, Potatoes, actually ends up being or meaning a whole lot here. Look at Cruel's positioning on the Raptor camp. Still has a ways to go before he gets down here. And that wave is pretty large, so probably going to crash underneath the tower. And the reset actually hasn't come through for the Hecarim yet. So if he does go for any kind of play, he's down 2 longswords to the Nocturne.
That's a really solid point. Despite Hecarim being arguably ahead, you know, definitely ahead in experience, and also probably ahead in gold, it doesn't mean anything if you haven't spent it. So it's really just going to be the levels impacting the game right now. Up top, Kennen also hasn't taken a reset despite having a little bit of a gold lead there. So as he gets pushed under the tower, it might actually get kind of tough for him to play for the, you know, until he can find that window to go back to base without giving up too much, you know, power plating health or things like that.
Well, Genetics checking. Oh, it would have been really unfortunate if that back was canceled. Glada is here, should be able to pick up the Scuttle Crab. They might start onto the Mountain Drake too. They did spot out Cruel here in the bot side, and now he's gone, so they should know that he's reset on his way back up towards his top camps and those grubs, so perfect opportunity for them to open up onto the Mountain Drake. Gunman's got a pretty good HP advantage here over Krama, who uses the stun nicely. That's the trade pattern with the Kennen. You use that movement speed that you have to stack that stun up and get away from the Jax, but forcing the flashes, Gunman, who gets the solo kill, catching him off guard.
Yeah, and that's just a bit of an overstay from the Kennen. You can see the wave starts bouncing back towards the Jax, and that, you know, that can give Kennen a bit of an advantage in a fight, but having not gone back at all to spend any money means the Jax is considerably stronger in that 1v1, and so, yeah, I think the lead that Kennen had built up there doesn't end up meaning too much now.
Look at the jungle too. We're going to keep coming back to this jungle, but these are Glada's topside camps being taken away again. Now, he's going to have absolutely nothing if these are taken away, and Cruel is level 6 to Glada's level 5. So this is going to be dangerous as he makes his way up. We do see a little bit of a freeze here on the stream, but yeah, walking into potentially no camps is this Hecarim right now. Is this Nocturne rather. It's already a 20 CS lead. Like, this is getting pretty iffy here, and now even worse since that solo kill came through in the top lane.
Yeah, that is not a small lead that Hecarim has now. The Caulfields and the longsword to just 2 longswords means if Glada walks in there alone, it could be pretty disastrous, especially with the Galio ult to help. And it looks like we are going to be taking a quick break here while we figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so having some issues with the game here. So yeah, back to us, back to more things being chatted up about. And I mean, for Cronus, this game looks pretty solid so far. A much better start to their game than the previous one is. Absolutely. Cruel is set up to carry on this Hecarim, has lots of farm in his belly, or solo kill for the Jax. And yeah, once we sort out the pauses and all the difficulties that's going on, we will come back to you guys and bring you the rest of the game. So apologies for the delay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back once we get the game back up and running. we're back into the game. We went through a little bit of a time warp here, having some problems with the spectator. You know, it always happens, but we're back. We're here to go. And look at this, potatoes. We got 2 kills on the Hecarim here, a kill on the Hayasaka as well. So something went down while we were gone, but Cronus is, well, I mean, there's a couple kills for the side of Conduit as well, but they're feeling pretty good with this massive lead that the Hecarim has. Is we're going to see Slicing Maelstrom come down onto Gunman, but he just smacks him in the face with the lamppost. Maybe not a lamppost on that Nemesis skin, but Gunman's second solo kill of the game.
2 solo kills for the Jax now. Krama just a little too close, trying to make sure that Jax stays in that ult, but ends up being a little, yeah, just a bit too close. Gets hit by the E and the ult there as Genetics throws the arrow. Not really sure what that's about as Ipsy is roaming to the mid lane here. But while that's happening, Chinese Spy is also taking a reset, so I don't think this room's going to get much value right now. And that's a pretty major cooldown burn for not much benefit.
They seem disconnected, does Conduit, from what they actually want to do here. They're moving Yipsy up to maybe contest grubs while Genetics throws out an arrow to initiate a 2v2 while Miyagi doesn't have cleanse. But they're just not on the same page. 6 grubs to Cronus. The first time we're seeing 6 grubs go to either of these teams in this series. And they are setting up real nice right now. The Dragon is live and Glada is in the area, but I think Cronus is going to be more than happy to give away those first 2 Drakes, accumulate more of a lead, and then later on in the match can start to focus on preventing that soul dream here from Conduit.
I've got to agree. I think those 6 grubs are quite potent in the hands of Odyssey because they have the Jax, who is such a threat on the side, and the Caitlyn, who can hit towers from far away while shoving in bot lane. If they can use the grubs to build themselves a gold lead, I think the dragons that Conduit has picked up so far might not matter too much.
No, they definitely won't. Krama, off camera there while the Drake was going down, had to use flash. And it's not a flash advantage for Gunman. It looked like, well, Gunman actually has no flash either, so can't utilize that advantage in the lane, but nonetheless, no flash on the Kennen feels rough here, especially when you're already down to this Jax, has the Mercury treads. You don't really deal a whole lot of damage to him. It feels really tough in this lane. And I said it here as Gunman is getting some heavy trades off. They went for the Gnar. It was pretty successful in game 2 against Gunman's Jax. And this time around the Kennen, it's a tougher counter pick to pull off. It's a lot more room for error here, so Gunman kind of exploiting that fact in this game so far. I think that Kennen is significantly tougher to pilot in the early game because your mobility is more of a move speed buff instead of a dash that can get you out of danger so easily, and you have a little less access to the consistent damage to keep poking the Jax out as the game goes on. Now we see it's slow here in this mid game, but that's perfectly fine for Cronus, and Conduit isn't too upset about that either. Let's take a look at Chinese Spy right now. Close to 10 CS a minute on this. Aurelion Soul has the large Skies Descend at his disposal. We'll look at top lane Grandmasters might use from Gunman. It's Krama off the teleport with the HP advantage. That ward hop does not get him very far, and Krama is able to punish the over-aggression from Gunman.
That feels like an exact reversal of what we saw earlier in the game, where, in the early game, Gunman TP'd back in and found the solo kill on Krama overstaying. Now the exact opposite has happened, with Krama using the ult to pick up a kill for themselves. So counter pick working a little better than we were giving it credit for, maybe. But yeah, just before that was happening, you mentioned the Asol around 10 CS per minute, and that's exactly how he wants this game to be going. Because if he can make it through this early game, I think he can deal with anything that Odyssey throws at him pretty handily.
The one danger is the Hecarim getting onto him in the back line. He wants to just stand still while people are CC'd and hit them from afar. Skies Descend is a great tool to start that off as Gunman trying to get some trading back here. 2 minutes to go on this next Ocean Drake. The Rift Herald is live. And so I imagine with Cruel Pathing up here, reset trying to be taken by Krama on the minimap, as you can see, this should be the start for Cronus onto the Rift Herald. It doesn't really look like Conduit in any kind of position to contest this, and it should go right over to the ODC boys.
Conduit was kind of overloading towards the bottom side of the map, which is a bit confusing because, yeah, there's no objective coming up down there for another 2 minutes, which means this Rift Herald is probably going to be free for Odyssey Cronus. They do have the Thresh and the Nocturne hovering around mid, which means they might be able to get the vision they need to take that dragon once it does come up, but the Herald, so far, completely uncontested.
And we'll see where they want to use this. The typical way to use it in this situation would be to wait for the dragon to spawn and drop that Herald down to get some pressure in the mid lane, make your opponents think about contesting that and pulling off of the dragon. That way you can get priority. I expect that that's the way they're going to do it. Let's look at what they're cooking up here. They have full control, does Conduit. Ronnie World is going to spot Genetics, who's leading the charge. Now the paranoia comes through. The flash will bring him back, and the Encore lands onto one because Glada used the spell shield to get away from it. There's the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. The cleanse is going to be late. The flash away. Heroic entrance now from Hayasaka to join the play. Cruel is here from the top side as well. Unstoppable onslaught into multiple people, but doesn't get the value that he wants. The shutdown goes to the Thresh, but nonetheless, Conduit get the play that they wanted. That's 3 on the board.
Conduit with some great aggression as a team. They make the call to use that deep vision they can set up, sit in the enemy jungle, and wait for the first person to walk in that they can go on. Now, it looked a little split as
they're not done, though. Hayasaka gets a nice taunt onto 2 and actually trades 2 back here, so the redive, pretty disastrous and not as good as Conduit would have hoped.
a little bit over aggressive maybe from Conduit, but they do get that first turret off the back of it all, and the Thresh dying, maybe they don't care about so much. The Asol, you know, he wants to keep farming, but it's still a lead over his counterpart in the end. Ronnie World's in some danger,
but Cruel's on the way. No unstoppable onslaught. Ace in the hole is just gonna drop Genetics, and Conduit, they're getting punished for their over-aggression. They have stayed way too long here, and Cronus say, your time is up in our jungle, as Kramer says your time is up for Gunman in the top lane and gets the second solo kill back. We're 2-2 in the series here in the top lane.
This series continues to deliver action all over the map with, Conduit, once again, overstaying a little bit. They do a great job with the proactive play onto the enemy.
Yipsy. This is, okay. Well, I'm not sure what that was. A bit of a misstep, we'll have to say. Let's get some analysis here, Freedom Potatoes. What was going on in the mind of Yipsy in that one?
I'm not really sure there. I guess just trying to set up some vision and maybe see if they can stall the dragon out, but you are just a Thresh against 4 players. I don't think there's any chance of that happening.
As said, now we're going to get a play in the mid lane. It's non-stop action here in game number 3. It's going to be Miyagi to drop Hayasaka as the next target. The Frost arrows from Genetics are going to slow him down. Gunman has the flank, but the Encore is going to miss. There's simply no follow-up. Let's lead strike towards the minions to try and get out of this situation, but Genetics slows are so much, almost too much to handle. Cruel Sun God going in with the unstoppable onslaught will at least pick up the AD carry of Conduit. But play number 3 here in this chain of plays goes CEV's way.
The mid game is so wild here as another huge fight breaks out mid lane, this time with everyone from both teams participating, and it goes the way of Conduit picking up another turret and now looking in the jungle of their foes, driving Cruel Sun God away from his own camps and helping the Nocturne pick up some more farm here.
They're taking away all of his camps right in his face. Actually wants to run back into the jungle here. Kramer will say, enough of you. This is our jungle now. And this has been a really high-octane mid-game. Both teams at each other's throats, ready to go for plays. They're not holding back in this third game. It feels like in certain situations, and the way it mostly goes in game deciders, they like to play a little bit conservative because they know what's on the line here. They don't want to make any mistakes that might toss away the game. It feels like that's the exact opposite here. We're playing in reverse. They're playing no fear right now, but you love to see it. It makes for quite the exciting series, and it's actually now 1.5K in the lead for Conduit. They've made a really nice transition from early to mid.
it feels like Conduit is a little bit more in the driver's seat as far as just acting proactively in this game, and then a lot of times Odyssey is kind of responding to it, and very frequently finding a good punish to get themselves something back. So we'll see if that continues to be the case as the game goes later, and the game becomes a little more oriented around, objective team fights instead of playing in the lanes.
And I think for the most part, Conduit has done a good job of fighting together. It can be hard when so many things are happening all across the map to stay together and work as a team, and it hasn't been perfect. But in the bot play specifically, before things went a little wrong, they were together and they made that play happen. It was hard for Cruel to get value with the unstoppable onslaught when so many people were around him. So let's see what Krama's going to do here. Waiting for the jungler inside of the brush. This should just be the Jax to go down. They laid the trap and walked right into it, did Gunman, and they get the pick here in bot lane.
Yeah, for about 15 seconds there, it just felt like a matter of time until that Nocturne shows up, and as soon as the Paranoia comes through, Gunman is going down yet again. So Krama has built up quite a lead now, as Genetics is in some trouble.
The target here from Cruel, but Gladys here, this is just unable to know where the other team is Cruel now, and that will be the enchanted crystal arrow to seal his fate. The Encore is not going to get enough from Ronnie World. Miyagi is going to nicely dodge away from the death sentence, but once again, Conduit, they find a winning play.
Yeah, Cruel Sun God tries to punish its Genetics being up
You
far
have
in
to
the mid lane.
believe Skies Descend's going to come through. A heroic entrance from the Galio, can't find the taunt onto anyone. They are poking and prodding. They are spacing so well. This is beautiful team fighting right here from Conduit. They get almost everything that they want. Tier 2 on the bot side, potatoes. It's all collapsing for Odyssey Cronus in front of their faces.
Yeah, just a few minutes ago, the gold lead was pretty small for Conduit, somewhere like 1.5, 2k gold. Now they're up at 5,000 gold, with not much answered from the side of Odyssey. So, game definitely swinging hard in Conduit Esports' favor. And I think Odyssey needs to kind of start maybe reinforcing this Jax on the side lane and find answers to that strong 2v1 play that Conduit keeps going for with the Nocturne.
One thing about Nocturne is you're never safe in the side lane. Paranoia can come through at any time, and that's been on display like you mentioned. And Hecarim can cover long distances with movement speed, but doesn't quite have the catch potential that the Nocturne has. And so it's been difficult for Cronus to deal with this pick potential. And now actually jumping right in onto Krama is Odyssey, although the flash will bring him to safety, and Chinese Spy here to escort him out of here. And now the Ocean Drake is up and available for both of these teams.
That's probably going to be Soul Point over to the side of Conduit Esports, as the Hecarim just finished his recall. It is pretty fast getting out onto the map, but the setup is already here for Conduit Esports. And I feel like Odyssey hasn't really gotten to take a team fight the way they want to, They really want to send that Hecarim into the backline, have the Galio get onto some backliners too, as the Seraphine ult comes through, and then Jax and Caitlyn can kind of just dismantle the targets.
Yeah, Sentence connects, Lantern in as well, Paranoia to follow, Cruel is the target, but an unstoppable onslaught will bring him out. Can't say the same for Ronnie World, who is caught up in the slicing maelstrom of Krama, and another pick here for the Conduit squad immediately following the Dragon.
The mid-game power of this Nocturne is just so high. Any fight can instantly become, an extra member from the other team showing up. And so Conduit Esports has continued to push this game. And we haven't even seen the Aurelion Soul truly come online yet. He is only going to get stronger as this game progresses. But they do want to find a pick here.
And Hayasaka, they land the taunt here. Flash available for Chinese Spy, who will use it in the flight too to bring him out. It's just like he's teasing Cronus here. They can be happy, I guess, about getting the flash off of the A-Soul, but really it's not a whole lot that they've gotten, and they're losing all their camps. This game is just being dismantled in front of their faces. There's not a lot that they can do. I think you made a great point, Potatoes, in the fact that they just can't get the skirmishes that they want. They're a team that needs a lead. They have a snowball-esque solo queue jungler that doesn't provide a whole lot if it's behind. And right now, it's behind. It just doesn't feel like this Hecarim is doing what it should. And it's one of the main detriments here to Cronus, on top of the fact that everyone else just doesn't feel in the spots that they need to be a threat to any of these Conduit members. Is Arrow going to go in between the support and the AD of Cronus, and they'll be okay?
We saw a reasonable sized lead for Cruel Sun God on the Hecarim in the early game. I think he was 2-0 and 1 at one point with like 30 to 40 farm ahead. But as these fights start coming through, and he can't play as selfishly for farm and just out jungling his opponent in the early game, it gets a lot trickier because a lot of times he's had to blow the ult defensively. He's not going into the backline, he's just running away to make sure he survives.
And that's the worst feeling as a Hecarim player. You never want to do that. You always want to be going into. It's unstoppable onslaught, not unstoppable retreat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to be in there. You want to be killing people. You can't kill people if you're running away. So unless you're Singed, he's not playing Singed. So yeah, it's been a rough mid game, and Gunman gets a tower here, and so able to get something is Cronus. And the Baron hasn't been started. They're waiting for maybe a pick or an opportunity. They don't feel confident enough to just start this one outright. I don't know. Are we going to be in for a game similar to game one where it's like a full lead here for Conduit, but they just can't really get what they need to close it out? We might be in for a long one or a short one if they actually get what they want here, and they're fishing for something right now. The arrow connects onto Ronnie World, who flashed forward instead of to the side. The Skies Descend will hit onto Cruel, who once again has to use the ultimate defensively. Hayasaka trying to tank up for the team, but the stun will be good actually from the Jax. The counter strike is nice, but the slicing maelstrom's even better. And look at the dragon on the side. Chinese Spy is doing the work he needs for his team. Gonna breathe down onto Miyagi as well. Ronnie World is going to be next, who they look for, but this fight is all for Conduit, and they get everything that they need. This dragon is flying all the distances to finish everyone off, and Conduit are in full control.
For a moment there, it looked good with Odyssey picking up the first kill on the Jax, and a lot of the pieces coming together. Team really grouped up. Seraphine ult hits onto a bunch of people. But then Chinese Spy on the Aurelion Soul shows up and dishes out so much damage from the flank. And as soon as he arrives, it's over for Odyssey.
It is over. It's looking pretty rough now. Inhibitor down. This is perfect for Conduit to leverage Baron. They're not done yet. They haven't even reset after the fight. They're taking another tier 2. Take a look up to the gold. That is close to 10,000 here in their advantage. And let's see the individual advantages as well, thanks to the observers for panning over to this. It's a steady 2,000 to 3,000 lead for everyone. Every single lane except for maybe the supports for Conduit. It's a lead that's going to be very difficult for Cronus to recover from right now. And once this Baron play goes down, it might just be the beginning of the end for them, as Ronnie's been tagged by a cross-map arrow. I don't know if all that was worth it for the Seraphine guys. You got him. You hit the arrow, the paranoia, and the flash from Yipsy, but hey, they got it. This might be what they need to start the Baron.
With the experimental hex play on the Nocturne, that ult is going to be coming up pretty soon, and Asphalt isn't too long out either. So it looks like the soul is going to be claimed by Conduit Esports here. The Hecarim kind of just wandering around the map. There's not a lot they can find unless Yipsy gives over another kill here.
Yipsy is just checking to see that Cronus isn't rushing the Baron. Might pay with his life for it, but the rest of the squad is on the way. 5 versus 4. No Seraphine in this fight. Look at that. Skies Descend. It will land directly onto the forehead of Gunman. Heroic entrance will not be so heroic, as the Jax will fall anyways, and Miyagi is next on the menu. Has flash, but it will only do quite literally nothing. The slicing maelstrom was used by Krama, but this should be Baron now for Conduit, as Hayasaka is on the other side of the map. The arrow will go wide. Gonna try and fish for an execute, but you're so tanky that execute's not coming through anytime soon. The volley connects. Genetics has the slows and will run the gargoyle down.
Finally gonna go down. It takes a while. That Galio is really tanky, but that kind of highlights potentially another deficit of Odyssey's comp here, which is that they don't have a lot of raw damage. They have some bruisers that have a mix of the tankiness and damage, but with the Caitlyn being I think having a little bit of a power trough in the mid game, it's really hard for them to find kills even when the Nocturne goes deep into the midst of them.
It just feels that this game, I mean, the early game was nice, Cronus. They had something going for them, but play in and play out, it feels that I want to say there's been more coordination from Conduit, but they have more options for their team right now. They have Slicing Maelstrom. They have the Arrow to start off fights. The huge ultimates here from the 8-1 Aurelion Soul have been massive. They can open up fights with so many abilities. And for the other side, Cronus, it's like their team is behind there and they don't like to be starting fights from the back, but they want to jump forward. They want to go in with the Jax. They want to combine that with the heroic entrance, but they are already behind in goal, let alone not starting the fights the way that they want to. They do not want to be engaged into. The only two champions that really enjoy that are the Caitlyn and the Seraphine, but they're not in a position to take down the Sterix, Nocturne, or any other people for that matter. Ocean Soul on top of it. They're going to try and make a miracle play here onto Grandma. And this going to get the Slicing Maelstrom out. Cruel is going to utilize the Unstoppable Onslaught to get closer to the Kennen. They should be able to pick him up here into the Zani as he goes, just buying time. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow hits onto the Hecarim, but cross map, it's still going to be good for Conduit as they drop that inhibitor once again.
It's a nice shutdown over to the side of Odyssey Cronus, but losing an inhib, not really worth. But you know, when you're behind like this, you really do just have to find anything that you can. And trying to contest every fight head to head is not going to go their way. It's so hard for them to find an engage in like a proper team fight at this point. So picking off the Kennen isolated on the side lane is nice for them. But I can't help but feel like this game should be coming to a close in the next few minutes unless ODC can find something huge.
Here's the Skies Descend. Hayasaka is getting down to half HP here. The siege is pretty good right now from Conduit. They're trying to brute force this tower down, but pay attention to the TP flank on your minimap. Gunman here to try and make the miracle flank go down, and Cruel is here as well. Encore is actually going to land onto the Aurelion Soul, and Hayasaka has found him as well. They're going to be able to bring down the dragon. This could be the fight that Cronus needs, but look at Glada in the backside. Miyagi is dropping, but the heals from Ronnie World are pretty good. Shut down onto the Ash is Gunman on the backside. How is the rest of the fight going for Cronus? It's looking nice. Yipsy is trying to run away from the rest of them, but the Slicing Maelstrom might just pull all hope away from the Cronus team. It's only down to Cruel. He gets no value from the Unstoppable Onslaught. There is just too much in the tank. The Ocean Soul is too powerful, and it looks like in the last game of the series, Conduit have enough to pull through and win it here.
Great job by Conduit. That looked like, you know, the ideal fight for Odyssey. They got the Jax flank, they got the Seraphine ult onto people again, but at this point, it's just a wallet diff, and Conduit Esports will close out the game here.
Conduit Esports improved to 3-1 here in the Conqueror League, and it was a battle. This series, I mean, pretty dominant victory from Conduit in the third one, but the other two, they got very close. Cronus had glimmers of hope, especially in game 2 where it felt like they didn't have much. So this has been quite the fun series to watch, and we saw some pretty impressive performances from many of these players. Chinese Spy on the Aurelion Soul was fantastic. Cruel in the first 2 games had quite impressive performances on the Ivern and the Kayn as well. And honestly, what an exciting one. It really didn't know, at least until the tail end of game 3, who was going to take this series.
Huge redemption for Chinese Spy on the Aurelion Soul. Getting counterpicked in game 1 had to feel bad into the Lux, but this time, you know, there's so much fighting in the early game, and I think when we were back into game after that freeze, you know, he was still 0-0-0 on the ASOL, but highest farm in the game by a significant margin, and that's exactly where you want to be on ASOL. You can say, you know, hey, you guys can fight. If you can win without me, that's all good. I'm just going to be here getting 10 CS per minute and carrying these late game fights.
Well, Conduit, they had their backs against the wall in after the first loss that they had, able to bring it back with the reverse sweep in this best of 3. They're going to be very happy with that win in week 4, but that's going to bring this stream here at Titan Esports to a close. That was the Titan Conqueror League week number 4. Pretty exciting best of 3 there. My name is Ferris. That's Freedom Potatoes. Thank you so much to Wookie, who was on production for this stream, and we will be back bringing you more action next Wednesday for week 5. So thank you to everyone who tuned in for the stream through all the small tribulations that we had, the pauses and everything. I appreciate all of you who stuck it through, and we'll see you next time.